Chapter 1278. Lu Zidong took these 2 steps with great confidence. The students' shooting requirements were obviously different from the instructors. It was impossible for them to walk to the shooting range with their guns. This was too much of a burden for them. The method used was to directly set up the gun at the shooting distance and lower the butt of the gun. As long as they could pick up the gun, put it on their shoulders and crawl to shoot. In other words, no matter how strong the great skipper was, she would not be able to use it in this segment. Lu Zitong walked to her position and glanced in Aju's direction. The meaning on her face was very obvious. It was obvious that she did not like Aju. Aju did not even look at her. She turned the black wristband on her other hand and was looking down at her feet. Unlike the others, she looked a little confused. The smile on Lu Zitong's face became even wider as she raised her eyebrows. Everyone listen up, get down. There was another swoosh. Everyone got down, their eyes on the same level as the gun. When it came to shooting, if one did not have talent, what they practiced was their usual familiarity. It had to be said that Lu Zidong's posture was very good. It was obvious that she had come into contact with this aspect before. Although the others also got down, their postures were very ugly. There were all kinds of crooked postures. However, it was also very good to have such an effect in less than a day. At the very least, their reaction speed was fast enough. Aju also got into position, but she did not immediately take the gun. Instead, she raised her head and looked at the target in the distance. Right at this moment, there was a bang. Lu Zidong had already fired the first shot, and the others also raised their long guns. There was a time limit in the shooting competition. There was a total of 5 bullets. The shorter the time, the higher the hit rate, and the winner would be the one who won. And now Aju, who was 1 step behind the others, was obviously at a disadvantage. In addition, Lu Zidong's shooting had achieved a good score of 8 points. This was simply unbelievable for a female student. One had to know that many people could not even hit the target when they fired for the first time. It was not uncommon for them to miss the target directly, or only hit the edge of the target. Therefore, there were not many people who could achieve Lu Zitong's result. Li Yanfeng was the first to applaud. Even Professor Liang could not help but say, "Not bad." At the same time, Aju directly placed the long gun on her body. She half lay on the grass and used her shoulders as support. She narrowed her eyes slightly, and was so quiet that it was as if she was embedded in the ground. Shooting was not something that could be won just by being fast. Instead, he had to be as nimble as a rabbit, and as still as a virgin, waiting for the right time to shoot. Vice Captain Zhang was still quite proud of himself as he straightened his back. Lu Zidong was his student. Lu Zidong's grades were good, which meant that he taught well. Thinking of this, he even deliberately looked in Bai Zhuan's direction. His tail was almost curled up. Bai Zhuan just smiled for some reason. At this time, Lu Zidong had already begun to adjust her breathing. She was ready to fire the second shot. As the saying goes, one can only shoot accurately with good aim. Her shot this time was definitely better than the previous one. With such confidence, Lu Zitong was just about to pull the trigger when she heard a bang. A bullet flew out from her left. Before he could finish speaking, a second sound was heard. Then it was the third, the fourth, the fifth. A total of 5 gunshots rang out magnificently. There was not even a chance to take a breather in between. That speed was so fast that it made people click their tongues. The wind rustled past their ears, and no one could react in time. Lu Zitong was also stunned. Then she wanted to continue disapprovingly. In any case, she was shooting so fast that she definitely wouldn't be able to hit a single shot. It was obvious that he was a layman when he fired like this. The most taboo thing for gunmen was to fire many shots in a row. If the first shot was not accurate, if one was given time to adjust, they could still have a chance to correct it again. However, the other party did not even give them time to correct it. Wasn't this a game? It's obviously a random shot. What's going on with the archaeology department? Did they just give up? It's probably because they heard that Zidong could get such good results that they simply gave up on themselves. What did I say just now? I told some people not to overestimate themselves. Didn't they expose themselves in the competition? You can't say that. At the very least, she can pick up a gun. Her strength is something that ordinary girls like us can't compare to. Didn't she still lose with great strength? Heh. These mocking voices made the people from the archaeology department very uncomfortable, especially those from Aji's dormitory. They glared fiercely at them. The people from the performance department were disdainful. What are you looking at? Why? Can't you afford to lose? However, at this moment, the ring member, who had been frozen, suddenly shouted in a hoarse voice. The first target is 9. 7. The second target is 9. 8. The fifth target is 10 points. Every shot was a score of more than 9 points. And the last shot even hit the center of the circle. The ring member could not believe what he saw at all, which was why he froze on the spot for a long time at the beginning. This result was only obtained after he confirmed it again and again. Moreover, the first target could actually be said to be 9. 8. However, a student had achieved such a good result. How could the instructors continue to fight? Even Li Yanfeng could not help but raise his eyebrows when he heard this result. Just from his expression, one could tell how shocked he was. Vice Captain Zhang's eyes widened even more, and his fingers tightened. Even he might not be able to achieve such a result. In fact, it was very likely that he was not as good as a Jew. After all, he had once added up 5 rings, and his best result was still a full 5 rings worse than a Jew's. Moreover, she used too little time. 5 shots in a row, and the soldiers at the side were all dumbfounded. It was one thing for Lord Bai to be abnormal. How could such a cute Jew be so abnormal? Although they could shoot 5 shots in a row, they were all small guns. For example, if there was a slight deviation in a powerful sniper rifle like a weight, they would not be able to shoot so accurately. After all, when they could not bear the weight, their fingers would involuntarily tremble. A person like a Jew could simply join their army and be a seeded player in the first round. After Lu Zitong heard such a result, the blood on her face almost faded away. She bit her lip heavily and angrily threw the gun to the ground. She had also shot 5 shots, but the first 8 points was already her best result. The rest of the shots did not break 7 points. She did not get first place, nor did she get second place. She barely managed to get third place. But the difference between her score and the previous one was not just a little bit. It was clear at a glance who had won and who had lost. The few girls from the performance department, who were still showing off to the archaeology department a second ago, immediately turned red in the face and neck. Chapter 1279. The archaeology department did not look at them. Instead, they hugged a Jew who was walking back. Their voices were filled with joy. A Jew, you are indeed our department's cute pet. My boyfriend is off the charts. Come and give me a kiss. The girls were really kissing. They kissed Aji's big head. A Jew reached out and touched her head. She raised her eyes and smiled. Her face was even more beautiful. Lu Zitong was so angry that she did not even care about the rules. She flung her hand and did not even pay attention to her good friends beside her. Her formation was also different from before. The young lady's temper was on the verge of exploding. The people from the performance department comforted her. This is nothing. Our total score is only a little lower than the archaeology department's. When the instructor goes on stage later, we will immediately catch up. After Lu Zitong heard this, her heart felt a little more at ease. Thinking about what her Uncle Li had said earlier, her gaze towards the front returned to its previous arrogance. Li Yanfeng, on the other hand, laughed out loud. Professor Liang, your University A is really full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. This little girl is not simple. 5 shots in a row is rare even in our army. As he spoke, he shifted his gaze to the instructors. All of you have to work hard. If you can't get a good result later, and can't even compare to the students, it will be embarrassing. These words were a warning. Vice Captain Zhang naturally understood and immediately said, Don't worry, Captain. Alright, you guys can go too. With Li Yanfeng's order, the whistle sounded, and more than 30 targets were pushed back another meter at the same time. The range of the instructors was originally farther than that of the students. This was set from the beginning, but Aju did not know that. When she saw the targets move back 1 meter, she lowered her head and muttered, I was wondering what was strange. It turned out that the distance was too close. That's right. The reason why Aju didn't get 5 10 points was that this shooting distance was different from her usual shooting habits. At the beginning, she was also adjusting herself when she was looking at it. Other than Bai Juan, no one could see this point. That was why Master Bai showed a meaningful doting look. The roommate standing next to Aju thought that she had heard wrongly. Are you saying that the distance just now was too close? That's right. Aju's face was serious. A heavy gun like this is suitable for a longer range. At such a close distance, it is actually more suitable to use a light gun like the K4 to aim. Aju's roommates were speechless. She sounded so professional. They were really dumbfounded. However, from what Aju said, it seemed that she would be able to hit more accurately if they were further away. All of a sudden, everyone felt their knees go weak. In the past, they only knew that Aju was very strong. Now they realized that she was hiding a lot of things that they did not know at all. For example, her adoptive relationship with Instructor Bai was very rare. Moreover, from the moment they entered the school until now, no one had seen Aju's parents. Other than her surname, it seemed that they did not know anything about Aju. For example, where was she from? There were some senior sisters who recognized her. But when they saw her, they all blushed and their hearts raced. It was as if she had seen her idol. So, what else did they not know about Aju? TSK, Lu Zitong sneered. It sounds good, but it's not that easy to do. As expected, it's easy to talk. The further away you are, the more difficult it is to shoot. You even talked about heavy guns and light guns. Who are you trying to fool? As soon as she said this, Aju's roommates immediately retaliated. I really don't understand what right a loser has to talk about our Aju. Isn't her face swollen enough? You! Lu Zitong was so angry that her face turned a little green. Then she saw the instructor standing there, checking the guns. The corners of her mouth curled up. What loser? It's not certain who will win or lose. Don't think that you can do anything just because of luck. The instructors haven't made a move yet. The instructor's shooting competition was a few more points than the students. One of them was that they had to crawl forward with guns. And there would be 3 obstacles in front of them. Professor Liang's design was to let the students truly experience how the soldiers in the army usually trained, so that they could learn what hard work was. It had to be said that the teaching tradition of University A was indeed good, and the method was also right. However, with Vice Captain Zhang in it, what was supposed to be a demonstration was filled with the smell of gunpowder. Everyone listen up. The sentry raised his left hand, and the whistle sounded. Let's go. With a clang, everyone picked up the long spear on their right hand. Vice Captain Zhang's position was the best, and the angle of his rush-out was also the best. The first obstacle was to climb over the fake wall. His strength was not bad. He held the gun in his right hand and clung to the wall with his left hand. After a few kicks, he climbed over. Vice Captain Zhang was a person with a lot of thoughts. In addition, the weather in the imperial capital was very dry. It had not rained for a few days, so the dust on the field was easily raised. Therefore, when they set off, while others were not paying attention, he deliberately used force with his feet and kicked the sand to the left. The people who set off from that position were none other than the problem soldiers of the archaeology department. Bai Juan took the lead. In order to protect his eyes, there was definitely a moment of pause. Therefore, the instructors on that side had already touched the wall, but the problem soldiers on this side were still in their original positions. Fuck, they actually cheated. Someone on the problem soldiers' side was really fooled and rubbed their eyes with all their might. Because of such an action, Bai Juan was completely enraged. Everyone could see that the person whose eyes had been indifferent since he entered the school, until now was releasing a vicious aura in his eyes. It was as if he had suddenly been touched by a poisonous snake or a fierce tiger. In an instant, he erupted with a speed that no one could have imagined. Only the problem soldiers knew why Bai Juan was like this. Every time they went out to carry out a mission, even if Master Bai was injured, he would try his best to ensure the safety of all of them. To him, while completing the mission, he would be able to let everyone return safely. Only then would he be able to live up to the people who had handed them over to him. But now, because of such a small competition, The other party actually made one of the people's eyes turn red. How could Vice Captain Zhang not know how important the eyes of a soldier were? Obviously, a person like Vice Captain Zhang did not feel guilty. At this moment, he was feeling confident that he could be the first to climb over the wall. However, at this moment, suddenly, a figure appeared on his left side. That person was like a cheetah with smooth lines. He had to use all his strength to hold on to the fake wall. But he took a step to the center. Then he held a gun in his left hand and used his right arm as a support. With a long leg, he flipped over the fake wall and landed beautifully and handsomely. His movements were shockingly fast. Chapter 1280. When the sound of the wind came, Vice Captain Zhang finally saw the face of that figure clearly. Handsome, noble, incomparable. It was that Baizhuan. How could this be? How could his speed be so fast? Vice Captain Zhang's eyes were still swaying. On the other side, Baizhuan did not give him any time to think. He slid sideways and used his own impact to drill into the sand net. Then, he swept his long spear and aimed the muzzle at the bull's eye in the distance. Whether it was his posture or the strength of holding the gun, he was so handsome that all the teachers and students widened their eyes. That kind of scene could really make people blush and their hearts beat faster. Cool. A Jew instructor Bai is really too cool. When a Jew heard this, she nodded in agreement. She had always known how handsome the little brother was. Although her shooting was also very fast and accurate, it was still different from the little brother. Not only was he fast and accurate, but he was also smooth. He guided like an arm, and then gave the enemy a fatal blow. It was perfect without any flaws. Almost everyone present had an illusion. It was as if there was always a shooting line in Baizhuan's line of sight. Regardless of whether he had a gun in his hand or not, that line would always exist, as if it was real. He didn't need to think about these things. All he needed to do was to fire the gun. Bang! The bullet directly pierced through the target ring and hit the bullseye. This was the first shot. Bang! The second shot followed. He was lying in that position with his shoulder pressed against the long spear. No matter where the target was or what position it changed, he would be able to hit the bullseye. 10 points. 10 points. 10 points. The ring counting member shouted until the end. His voice was trembling, and there was a sense of worship in his hoarse voice. All 10 points, full points. It was also 5 shots in a row. However, Baizhuan's 5 shots in a row were even faster than a Jew's. Moreover, the tip of the spear was constantly adjusting its direction. This was because there were 2 targets that were moving back and forth. Even so, his movements were smooth from the beginning to the end. It was so beautiful that it could not be described with words. At that moment, other than the voice of the ring counting member, almost everyone held their breaths. Baizhuan stood up from the ground with a long spear in one hand. His military uniform fluttered in the north wind, and his pale thin lips curved slightly. So many teachers and students could only think of one sentence. With a sweep of the spear, no one dares to come within 100 meters of our battle zone. It was not as simple as just being handsome. That kind of action seemed to be able to ignite the blood in her body. Proud and proud, he couldn't stop his heart from trembling. So these are the soldiers of our Wuxia. Unyielding and unyielding heroic spirit. Whoosh! There was no one to lead the applause. It was all spontaneous applause from the students. Baizhuan stood there with a long spear in his hand. His eyes were clear and handsome. Those eyes that were as deep as the sea, and that familiar scene instantly turned on the switch in Li Yanfeng's memory. 2 years ago, there was a rescue mission at the border. Just when he thought there was no way to save the hostages, a bullet fell from the sky and blew up the heads of 2 criminals in a row, giving them enough time to act. That kind of tricky angle was not something that any sniper could do. At that time, the only places around them that could be ambushed were trees. Moreover, in order to prevent them from having a sniper, the criminals used the hostages they were leaning against to block in front of them. They could not shoot at him at all. However, the person who fired the gun used the rebound angle of the wall to pierce through the criminal's temples. The most admirable thing was that he had been standing on the tree for more than an hour, but no one had discovered him, whether it was the criminals or their army. If it wasn't for this shot, Li Yanfeng's people wouldn't have known that such a special force had come down. Each of them was very fast. They wore huge black masks on their faces. Their figures flashed past, and directly barged in to solve the problem. Here. That person only said 2 words to him. It was when the hostages were pushed into his hands. Li Yanfeng couldn't see that person's appearance clearly, but he knew that that person was very young. He couldn't imagine how young he was at all. Only that person's gaze and shooting action remained in his mind. It was exactly the same as the instructor in front of him now. But how was that possible? Would he appear here? Li Yanfeng shook his head. Could it be that he was thinking too much? That person's identity was originally different from that of an ordinary soldier. He came from a famous family, a warlord family. Would he disguise himself as an ordinary soldier to give military training to the universities? Not to mention him. Even their chief wouldn't believe it when he heard this news. However, his eyes and the way he held the gun were so similar. The students on this side were in an uproar. It wasn't just because Bai Zhuan's performance was so cool that it was a little shocking. There were also those wild soldiers that they had always thought came from nowhere. Every one of them's movements and shooting were ridiculously beautiful. Compared to Bai Zhuan's outstanding performance, they were more orderly. They fired almost at the same time, and aimed at the same time. Even if they didn't score 10 points, they were all as high as 9, 8 points. The most important thing was that their speed was also very fast. There was no doubt that they were kings. After they were done shooting, just the way they held their guns made people feel a sense of coolness in their faces. There were 5 people in a row behind Bai Zhuan. Each of them had long legs and wide shoulders. Their figures were so good that they didn't look like them. They were also young and handsome. The visual impact they gave people could be imagined. The army could no longer win. With such a result, even the most powerful soldier in their army couldn't hit 5-10 points. And that was when the bullseye was moving. Vice Captain Zhang bragged for a long time. When he finally hit the 5th target, he had just crossed the 7-point line. This was the difference. The obvious difference was right in front of his eyes. Vice Captain Zhang only felt that he had been slapped in the face in public. He gripped the long gun in his hand tightly, and the anger in his chest rushed straight to his head. My hand slipped on the last shot, and something happened. Captain Li, I request a one-on-one. I want to fight with Bai Zhuan. Such words could be said to be shameless. Even the students hissed. What's wrong with this acting department's instructor? Isn't he lucky? His hand slipped. I'm really what excuse? Why didn't he say that he deliberately stepped on the ground when he started running? Other students couldn't see it. But we who practice sports know very well what kind of move he used just now. It was clearly to harm instructor Bai and the others' eyes. Damn. Such a person, fortunately, it's not our instructor. Vice Captain Zhang didn't expect that his words would have such a huge backlash. His face alternated between red and white, but he insisted on his mysterious self-confidence. Captain Li, please give the order. The army can't lose so inexplicably. Everyone knows that our army's best skill is not long-range shooting, but close combat. Chapter 1281. Li Yanfeng did not hear Vice Captain Zhang's words clearly. His ears were buzzing, and he was still immersed in that unbelievable shock. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Was the person in front of him the Blade King that countless people worshipped? Commander! Vice Captain Zhang was still gnashing his teeth. Li Yanfeng did not come back to his senses. Bai Zhuan, on the other hand, raised his eyes casually at this moment. His tone was also indifferent. You mean you want to fight with me? That's right. Vice Captain Zhang turned his head and said aggressively, there are too many unstable factors in shooting. A real man is to fight with his fists and feet. Bai Zhuan glanced at him again and only said 2 words. I'm not fighting. Ha! Vice Captain Zhang laughed mockingly. Why not? Are you afraid? So that's all you have? Bai Zhuan lowered his eyes and tidied up his sleeves. He said slowly, because you're too weak. His words did not have the slightest bit of emotion, but it made all the students of the archaeology department burst into laughter. Vice Captain Zhang's face was so red that it was almost dripping blood. As he spoke, he clenched his hands tightly and said angrily, Captain Bai, aren't you afraid of blowing your own trumpet? We'll know who's weak after a fight. A fight is fine. Bai Juan seemed to have thought of something and suddenly curled his thin lips. Bai Ligio, step out. When Aju heard her name, her ears twitched. She took a big step forward and looked at Vice Captain Zhang with her eyes. She looked like a snoring little tiger that had smelled the smell of food. Her big round eyes were shining. Bai Juan smiled and made the final decision. Let my student play with you. You. Vice Captain Zhang was so angry that his face was distorted. What do you mean by this? Don't think that just because our army is well-mannered, we will be easily humiliated by you wild soldiers. Sending students out, are you mocking our army? Bai Juan sneered. Are you worthy of being in the army? So you're targeting me personally. Vice Captain Zhang was also an expert at distorting the truth. You sent your students out to make me retreat, right? You're really shameless. When Aju heard this, her eyes narrowed and she directly stood in front of Bai Juan. She did not waste her breath with the other party. She exerted force with her left hand and directly grabbed Zhang's arm. Then she exerted force again. Before Vice Captain Zhang could react, he heard a loud bang. His entire body was flung over a meter away by the force of the impact. His back slammed heavily into the wall, and blood gushed out from his throat. In that instant, the surrounding air seemed to have solidified. Aju's roommates widened their eyes and looked at her. Their jaws were about to drop. The students from the other faculties all gasped in shock. Vice Captain Zhang was sprawled on the ground. His internal organs were in unbearable pain, but the anger on his face lessened. He still wanted to stand up and continue. However, he heard voices coming from the side of his ears. What a terrible fall. He was dealt with in one move. How could such a person be an instructor? It's really funny. However, an ordinary girl wouldn't be able to carry such a big man, right? Strength isn't the main point. The main point is that her movements just now were too cool. Ha ha ha. That instructor from the performing arts department should be more honest now. Even the students are better than him. What else does he want? That's why people from the performing arts department only know how to brag. The students are like this, and the instructors are also like this. If you're willing to bet, you should accept your loss, but you still insist on asking for a rebuff. Isn't that Lu Zidong the same? Just now, she was still not convinced that Aju won. Now look at Aju's skills. This last sentence not only made Vice Captain Zhang so embarrassed that he couldn't fight back, but it also directly stabbed Lu Zidong's spine. When she saw Bai Juan shoot, she was also shocked by that scene. The young girl's hazy good impression of him instantly turned into a strong liking. Although she knew that their department would lose because of this, she wasn't depressed. Her eyes had been on Bai Juan from the beginning to the end, and had never left him. But it was different when Bai Ligio made a move. This was simply a humiliation to her. Professor Liang. Lu Zidong seemed to be unable to hold it in any longer. She said passionately, "You are not allowed to disobey the instructor. This is the rule that you set up from the moment we entered the school." Now, Bai Ligio openly made a move against the instructor without anyone's permission. This is already considered a violation of the school rules. We admit that we lost the competition. After all, there are many irresistible factors. However, we can't condone Bai Ligio's actions. We hope that Professor Liang can reward and punish him. Such a student doesn't deserve to stay in University A at all. The last sentence was simply too much to the point that it was a little too much. However, Professor Liang couldn't say it directly. After all, the person sitting on his left was Li Yanfeng, and the person sitting on his right was President Liu. With these two people around, he couldn't criticize Lu Zidong in public. Moreover, the action had to be a fact. However, Professor Liang wouldn't punish a student just because of Lu Zidong's identity. Instead, he turned to Li Yanfeng and said, "What do you think of this matter, Commander Li?" Li Yanfeng's eyes had been looking at Bai Juan the whole time, but he hadn't spoken yet. The person on the other side laughed softly. "Miss Liu, what right do you have to say that someone doesn't deserve to stay in University A?" It was Bai Juan. His gaze was very cold, like ice in the 12th lunar month. His words were bone-chilling. "Is University A yours?" That gaze was too ruthless, as if it carried a strong smell of blood. It made Lu Zidong's hands and feet freeze. I. If I remember correctly, A Jew is a special talent that university especially poached from abroad. After saying this, he raised his head and looked up. Professor Liang, has University A changed its surname to Lu or Li? Why are you in such a dilemma? When Professor Liang heard the words special talent, his heart skipped a beat, and his palms involuntarily began to sweat. Please don't let it be what he thought. Professor Liang. Baizhuan continued. Perhaps you are too old and have forgotten. You should ask the Xiao family in detail, who allowed a Jew to appear here. As soon as the word Xiao family came out, Professor Liang immediately thought of another aristocratic family. The sweat in his palms became more and more intense. That one of the founding fathers of the nation. Wait a minute. Baizhuan. Professor Liang's legs suddenly went soft. You are. Baizhuan didn't look at him anymore. Instead, he placed his gaze on Li Yanfeng. His voice was as cold as ice. Commander Li, are you here to inspect the effect of the military training, or to support your niece? Chapter 1282. Being asked such a question, Li Yanfeng's body trembled. He had a very bad premonition. However, Lu Zidong was used to being arrogant. When she heard Baizhuan's words, her anger rose. When did my uncle support me? It's wrong for a student to hit an instructor. Instructor Bai can't possibly use such a set of excuses to slander my uncle Li just because something happened to his own student. I admit that ever since I entered this school, I've always done what the other students did. I've never done anything special. A student hit an instructor? Baizhuan's voice was very cold. How did Miss Lu get into University A? Is there a problem with her ability to express herself? Or is she deliberately trying to confuse the public? After being an actress for a long time, she is like a paparazzi. Why do you have to twist the obvious? Vice Captain Zhang wanted to fight, and a Jew accepted the challenge. This is the truth. Vice Captain Zhang had already stood up at this time. When he heard Baizhuan's words, he sneered. A Jew? You call her so intimately? An instructor being so close to a student is already a violation of the military rules and discipline. Now, you want to bite our Li Tuan when there's a problem? You're dreaming. When those soldiers heard Vice Captain Zhang's words, they also jumped up and down. Baizhuan, can you be responsible for your own words? If you slander Li Tuan, even if you are not from our army, Li Tuan has the right to remove your military status now. Baizhuan raised his eyebrows and smiled. Hailu, give Uncle Li a call and ask him when a regiment commander of the army has the right to remove our military status. Master Bai, don't you know my old man's temper? If anyone dares to touch my military status, he will chase them all over the courtyard. But if regiment commander Li really wants to compete with us in terms of family background, Li Hailu glanced around. Q-boy, ask your mother to control their army. The person called Q-boy was the youngest in the problem army, and of course, he was also the most foppish. Originally, they were here to pretend to be military training, so their numbers could not be revealed. However, the other party insisted on suppressing them. Then let's see who can suppress who more. The child did not waste time. He directly took out his phone and made a call. On the other side, the valiant female chief was sitting in her office, conducting a map of the battle analysis. The adjutant beside her came over and said, Madam, it's young master, young master. When the female director heard this, she immediately took the phone and said, Why are you calling me? This wasn't normal. Where are you now? Let me tell you, after you become a soldier, you better like girls and you're not allowed to hang around in a brothel anymore. Do you understand? Do you need money in the army? I'll ask your Uncle Wang to send it to you. You're still growing, so tell me what you want. If there's anything you want, you can come to the army. I'll bring you to eat good food. Now that your face is so thin, even your grandfather's heart aches when he sees it. You have to understand your father. He sent you to the army because he wanted you to become straight. How could you not come home for 2 years? Usually, you just call 1 or 2 times. Mom. Q-boy fair and tender. I'm on speaker. When the female department head heard this, she immediately fell silent. However, Li Yanfeng could still recognize the voice of the person on the other end of the phone. That is their department head. Without giving Li Yanfeng a chance to react, Q-Boy directly said. Mom, your army has a regiment commander surnamed Li. Now he has come to my military training school. He wants to support his niece. Those soldiers in your regiment even want to revoke my and Master Bai's military status. Are you going to interfere in this matter? Tell me again, whose military status does he want to revoke? Bai Juan's. No matter how protective she was, the female department head would not fight with her subordinates for her son. It was mainly because of Bai Juan. Bai Juan's military achievements were higher than hers. In a few days, she would have to salute him when she saw him. Moreover, he was such a good child. Her heart ached when she saw the injuries on his body. If Bai Juan wasn't around, her son might have become a scourge that made people worry. It was because of Bai Juan that he stepped onto the right path, and even won a lot of glory for China. In the past 2 years, he had become more and more responsible. Who was Bai Juan? Was he the one who wanted to revoke his military status? Give him the phone. The female department head was really angry. When Li Yanfeng heard this, his face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. Q-Boy took a step forward. With a long gun on his left shoulder, he wanted to throw the phone to her. Some people in the army, who already had opinions about them, still wanted to stop them. Li Yanfeng shouted in a hoarse voice, "All of you, get out of the way. Let this young master come over." At this point, he could almost confirm who the person on the other end of the phone was. These people who did not have military ranks did not know. As the commander of the army, he naturally knew who Q-Boy was. This should be the youngest son that their department head doted on the most. Q-Boy did not go over. He threw the phone away and returned to Bai Juan's side in a standard military posture. Li Yanfeng's fingers trembled as he raised the phone to his ear. The person on the other end said in a deep voice, "Li Yanfeng, bring your disobedient soldiers back now. Revoke your military status? Do you know who Bai Juan is? How dare you revoke his military status?" Slap. The crisp sound of the call, ending was like a sudden slap to Li Yanfeng's face. Li Yanfeng's lips turned white. He stood there with his phone in his right hand. His expression was blank. He felt that he was done for this time. As soon as the department head said, "Do you know who he is?" he knew that what he was most worried about had happened. That person was really the one in the sharp blade. The one and only soldier king in the entire army. Li Yanfeng raised his head and looked at Bai Juan with shaking eyes. His legs were weak. Bai Juan knew that the other party had already recognized him. His eyes were as calm as ink. "Hailu, take out your military badge." He was preparing to officially reveal his identity. They could not say their number, but old Zhao could still use it. At this time, the problem soldiers were all very fast. They took out their military badges from the left opening of their military uniforms and put them on one after another. Bai Juan's eyes were as usual, but his voice was so loud that it could ignite people. "Now, as the head of the amphibious army, I will remove Zhang Zhiyong and the others' qualifications to join the amphibious army. Their original military status will be removed. Also, we have never been a wild army." As soon as the name of the amphibious army was said, the entire army was shaken as well. This was because this army was not only the concentration camp for the selection of the special forces in the country, but also the gathering place of the military's connections. That was the army that all soldiers dreamed of joining. However, such an army was not something that ordinary people could enter. Only those who were outstanding in all aspects were qualified to join. Chapter 1283. But what did Bai Juan say just now? He said that he was the head of the amphibious army? The head of the amphibious army. In other words, in just an instant, Vice Commander Zhang's originally unconvinced face completely lost its arrogance. His face turned pale white. Not only him, but even the other army soldiers were all stunned on the spot. Clang! The gun in his hand fell heavily to the ground. They never would have thought that the wild army, that they had always mocked, would actually come from the amphibious army. What was even more unexpected was Bai Juan's identity. Li Yanfeng was the first person to react, but his reaction was not because of the amphibious army, but because he knew more than these soldiers, the top secret information that could not be said. "Young Master Bai," Li Yanfeng wanted to explain, But when he met Bai Juan's gaze, it was as if he was frozen. Most of the students did not know what had happened, but there was a small portion of them whose families were also connected to the army. When they heard Bai Juan's words, their blood immediately boiled. Amphibious army? Heavens! I'm not dreaming, right? I can actually see people from the amphibious army in my lifetime. This time, it was really worth it to go to university. Wait a minute, is the amphibious army very awesome? Of course they're awesome. I'll explain it to you like this. Look at the army, they're only awesome on land. The Air Force is good at aerial warfare. But what about the amphibious army? That's a comprehensive battle. They know how to fight, tank, missile, and even taxi. Moreover, they have to be outstanding in all three aspects. Some even know how to input information. In other words, they can be used as hackers at critical moments to hack into the local combat information database. Don't you think they're awesome? This is a hidden army that only the military knows about. Fuck, why do I feel like I'm watching a movie? I also feel that it's unbelievable. I heard from my father that the amphibious army doesn't come out of the mountains easily. Why would they come to our university for military training? This is simply a pie falling from the sky. No wonder Instructor Bai and the others have been unwilling to talk about their own troops. They are so awesome. They must be afraid that we will be proud if they tell us. Ha ha ha. But some people don't think that way. They insist on treating others low profile as incompetence. This time, Instructor Zhang should be dumbfounded. He keeps mocking Instructor Bai and the others because he is an official army soldier. That student Liu from the Performing Arts Department is also a weirdo. He doesn't want to admit his loss. He wants to go back on his words just because he has uncle's support. Hee, the people of the amphibious force are not people that any random guild leader can control. This time, it's a slap in the face, it's really loud. Hearing this, all the soldiers of the army blushed. However, none of them could say a word. Especially those who had mocked Bai Juan. They were even more embarrassed. Lu Zitong, who was at the side, didn't know what the concept of the amphibious force was at first. After hearing the explanation, her heart started to tremble. This time, she was very likely to implicate Uncle Li. No, we can't just bide our time like this. If she didn't come up with a solution soon, Uncle Li's position would be gone. Bai, Instructor Bai. Lu Zitong had a pitiful look on her face. Her eyes were slightly red. Everyone subconsciously wants to protect their loved ones. I believe that you soldiers know this feeling the best. Ever since Uncle Li entered the school, he has never given me any special privileges, nor has he had any intention of supporting me. Instructor Bai is from the archaeology department. I can understand why Instructor Bai has made such a decision now, but military status is too important for a soldier. Vice Captain Zhang doesn't know Instructor Bai's identity. It's just that his words are a little offensive, but that's also because we're on opposite sides. Vice Captain Zhang wants to win wholeheartedly. Instructor Bai is also a soldier. I want to ask Instructor Bai to understand the difficulties of a soldier. When Vice Captain Zhang heard that someone was speaking up for him, his originally dead heart was rekindled. So what if he was from the amphibious force? The more a person from the amphibious force was, the more they had to weigh the pros and cons. They couldn't just casually revoke his military status. Thinking of this, Vice Captain Zhang deliberately took off the military hat on his head, as if he was very heroic. Forget it, who asked me to meet a legendary soldier? I, an ordinary person, can't compare to someone who has connections. I admit defeat. Vice Captain Zhang said. In order to gain sympathy, his eyes were red. I just hope that the students present can understand. Commander Li didn't do anything wrong, but he still has to be implicated with me. It really shouldn't be. Also, no matter what the outcome is in the future, I want to say that I am worthy of this military uniform on my body. Hearing this, Bai Juan looked at him and suddenly tilted his head and smiled. With a handsome movement, he raised his right hand and straightened his long spear, pointing it directly at Vice Captain Zhang's head. Even his eyes were filled with a fierce hostility. You said that you are worthy of this military uniform on your body. This is just a competition, not for you to go on the battlefield to kill the enemy. Ordinary students don't know how important a soldier's eyes are to a soldier. But how can you not know? How can you use such a despicable method like stepping on sand? If a soldier's eyes are crippled, it means that his entire life is crippled. You said that you are worthy of this military uniform on your body. A real soldier never cares about credit. But what have you done? In order to win, for your own face, you actually did such a thing. A person like you, not to mention being afraid of things, and not daring to go on the battlefield. Even if you go on the battlefield, you will only betray your comrades. Zhang, if you were in my army, do you think I would still talk to you about disbanding your military status? I will kill you with one shot. As he spoke, Bai Zhuan turned to the left and looked at Lu Zitong. His side profile was as handsome as before, but it was as cold as a glacier. And you, a person who ignored the rules in school because of his family's ability, and a person who began to imply that others used their privilege after losing the competition, what right do you have to say such words as understanding? When I think of a person like you under our protection, the gun in my hand is not willing. At that moment, time seemed to have flowed backward. In order to protect a Jew, Bai Zhuan did not care about the consequences at all, and pulled out his gun in the military compound. Now he was still doing it to protect. However, the range of protection was wider. While removing the malignant tumor, he was already strong enough to bear any consequences. This was the Bai Zhuan who had grown up. He was full of righteousness and was fearless. Chapter 1284. All the students in the school were watching this scene, and their blood was boiling with indescribable passion. Not only the girls, but even the boys could not resist the aura that Bai Zhuan brought out at that moment. Although Vice Commander Zhang was a soldier, he was as timid as a mouse. He had never had a gun pointed at his head before. Now that he was facing the black muzzle of the gun, his expression changed. He was afraid that Bai Zhuan would really shoot. His legs began to tremble, and he was so scared that he almost knelt on the ground. With such a miserable appearance, there was no need for anyone to say anything. The students had already made a judgment in their hearts. Just as Instructor Bai had said, Zhang was not worthy of being a soldier at all. When the army saw him like that, they also felt embarrassed. Especially those few army soldiers who were standing tall and straight. They turned their heads away, and did not want to look at him at all. Lu Zidong's original plan instantly vanished into thin air. Her head was buzzing. She clearly saw the disgust in the eyes of her classmates. Lu Zitong was anxious and subconsciously called Li Yanfeng Uncle Li. She did not expect Li Yanfeng to interrupt her fiercely. Don't say any more. Lu Zitong was shocked by that voice. Li Yanfeng was not even in the mood to pay attention to her. He turned his head and said to Bai Zhuan, I am willing to accept all of young Master Bai's decisions. Lu Zitong was shocked again when she heard that. Vice Commander Zhang could not hold on any longer. His knees went soft and he knelt on the ground. He had never been so embarrassed before. The students from the performance department did not have the face to raise their heads again. After this shooting competition, Vice Commander Zhang left. The trending topic that Lu Zitong had painstakingly bought was not used. Instead, it was Bai Zhuan who said to Li Hailu at the last moment, let the Xiao family investigate what happened to University A this year. How did some unnecessary students get in? Lu Zidong's history was dug up in an instant. If her grades were not good enough, she would definitely be kicked out of school. How could Lu Zidong be convinced? She still wanted her father to torment her. Li Hailu did not hide it. He smiled at Lu Zitong and said, it's fine if you don't admit it after doing something wrong. But you even set your sights on a Jew, and want the professor to expel her. By doing this, it's obvious that you want Master Bai to kill you. You won't have any feelings for someone who bullies a Jew. Of course, you can continue to play those little tricks of yours after you leave the school. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you continue to play, your Lu family will be uprooted. Your father is also beside you. In this regard, you can consult your father more. Ask him, is the Lu family comparable to the Bai family? At this time, Lu Xian and had already realized which Bai family Li Hailu was talking about. A layer of sweat instantly overflowed from his forehead. He finally understood why his old friend would listen to the other party's orders so obediently. He also understood why Professor Liang was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Not to mention the Bai family. They could not afford to offend the Xiao family. However, Lu Zitong did not understand. She tugged at Lu Xianan's sleeve and was about to make a fuss. Dad, I can't just be driven out like this. Help me find some connections. Our family knows so many people. Uncle Li can't do it, but there's still Uncle Zhang and the others. There has to be one more powerful than this instructor Bai. There was a crisp slap. Lu Xian, and was afraid that Lu Zitong would say something else and completely anger the other party. He slapped her in the face. When had Lu Zitong ever been slapped like this? And it was in front of all the students. She covered her face and was almost dumbfounded. Lu Xian roared in a low voice. Do you know who the other party is? Why are you yelling about looking for someone? Is this how I usually teach you? Go and apologize to young Master Li and young Master Bai for what you just said. Lu Zitong was yelled at by her father. Only then did she realize that the other party's identity might have already exceeded her imagination. She quickly turned her head to look at Bai Juan. With tears in her eyes, she wanted to speak. However, Bai Juan did not even look at her. He walked back to the archaeology department. All the teachers and students in the school were watching from the side. Lu Zitong was really in an extremely sorry state. Lu Xian and saw that Bai Juan did not want to pay attention to them, so he did not dare to say anything. He quickly pulled his daughter out of the school. From then on, the father and daughter never dared to step into University A. At the same time, the students also realized that their instructors did not seem to have simple identities. Just when they thought that after this matter was over, the school would definitely change a batch of instructors for them. But they did not expect that Bai Juan and the others were still there. This made the enthusiasm of the young men and women for military training even higher. Seeing Bai Juan was like seeing a Prince Charming on TV. The archaeology department was undoubtedly the happiest. Every student was smiling like a flower. Aju, hurry up and tell me. What's your brother Bai's height in 3 measurements? There are people on the internet who want it. I think we should get instructor Bai to sign an autograph for each of us. The righteousness of our Prince Charming must be preserved forever. That's a good idea. Wait a minute, what's going on? Someone on the forum is asking about instructor Bai's family background. They even asked if he has a boyfriend now. Seeing this, the people from the archaeology department collectively looked at Aju, who was chewing on a steamed bun in her mouth. Their gossipy souls suddenly burned. Aju, tell me a little. What kind of girl does my Prince Charming like? There are many people who want this information now. The topic on the forum is especially hot. Aju's round tiger eyes rolled around. Then she thought for a moment. What kind of girl did little brother like? Those who are strong, easy to raise, and have white skin just. As she said that, she stretched out her hand and pointed. That direction. Astonishment was pointing at her little nose. Everyone in the archaeology department laughed out loud. Aju, are you referring to yourself? All right, we know that no one will not like our cute pet, let alone your brother Bai. But to be honest, what kind of girl does instructor Bai like? I don't think he has ever specially looked at anyone. How about we leave this mission to Aju to find out? The entire class unanimously decided to let Aju be the spy, who asked her to have a good relationship with instructor Bai. Only the few roommates who knew the inside story looked at each other and almost spat out the rice in their mouths. You let the white steamed bun that instructor Bai wanted to eat the most ask what instructor Bai liked to eat. This was completely a trap for Aju. White steamed bun was the new nickname given to Aju by the roommates. When they heard that the little sister was going to risk her life for the sake of the majority of students, they all patted Aju's head. You can do it. You have to make good use of your strength. But even if you don't make use of your strength, it's fine. After all, instructor Bai is so handsome. Aju. Chapter 1285. On the same day, Aju returned to the apartment with a mission. When she pushed open the door, she smelled the aroma of rice, as if something was being stir-fried. Alaska was squatting there, wagging its tail, trying its best to act cute toward the owner in the kitchen. Bai Juan did not change into his military uniform. He stood there tall and straight, flipping the pot in his hand. When he heard the sound of the door opening, he raised his eyes and smiled at Aju. Only then did Aju see clearly that it was her favorite water spinach. Her tiger eyes were immediately fixed on it, and she stood there in a daze, waiting for Baizhuan to feed her. Baizhuan seemed to have seen the little monk from when he was young again. His eyes were full of smiles, but he was afraid that he would burn Aju, so he used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of water spinach and blew on it before feeding it to Aju. After eating her favorite food, Aju was so happy that her ears pricked up. She was really a canine. It was not an exaggeration to call her a little tiger. Baizhuan also liked to raise such a little tiger. Just seeing it made people feel good. Although Aju was a foodie, she was not idle. Knowing that the dishes were about to be served, she took a plate and a bowl, and even poured milk for Baizhuan. When Baizhuan came out with the last dish, he saw that the dishes were placed very well, and the rice was scooped into the bowl. That kind of warmth was just waiting for him. When the milk entered the stomach, it was warm. For 3 days in a row, Baizhuan was dealing with the trivial matters after his identity was exposed, so he did not return to the apartment. After returning today, he saw that the room was filled with Aju's things. He could not help but laugh. And he did something that he would never do normally, which was to show off. After the photo was sent to the WeChat circle, Li Hailu was the first to comment. "I really didn't expect you to be like this, Master Bai. Are you trying to let the whole world know?" Following that was the envy, jealousy, and hatred of the problem legions. Finally, there was Xiaolin's message. "Tell Aju that I miss her." Baizhuan narrowed his eyes, moved his finger, and chose to delete this message. Xiaolin was speechless. "You are really? How can Aju stand you?" Baizhuan replied calmly. "She is drinking soup beside me now." Xiaolin was speechless. Master Bai was really inhuman when he showed off his love. It was not convenient to say more in the comments. Xiaolin gave him a call. Baizhuan looked at the screen and suddenly smiled. He directly handed the phone to Aju. "It's Xiaolin. I'm too dirty. I'm going to run the bath water first. You guys can chat." Aju did not suspect anything, and immediately took it. In order to reward her, Baizhuan specially fed her an apple. Although Aju did not know why her little brother wanted to reward her, she instinctively felt that it was a reward. "Hey!" When Xiaolin heard the voice of a young girl on the other end, he thought that he had heard wrongly. He confirmed the number again, and then thought of Baizhuan's WeChat message just now. He quickly smiled. "Aju. It's me. Brother Xiaolin. How have you been recently?" After Aju heard that familiar laughter, she became even happier. "I miss you so much." The two of them chatted on the phone. In the end, Xiaolin realized that something was wrong. "Aju, where's your little brother?" With Master Bai's jealousy, it was impossible for him to let Aju talk to him on the phone for so long, right? He went to run the bath water. This sentence revealed too much information. Xiaolin, who had been an experienced driver since he was young, looked at the dark sky outside and thought about the current relationship between Baizhuan and Aju. As Baizhuan wished, he coughed heavily and said, "Since you guys are busy, then that's all for now. When you have time another day, let's get together. Brother Xiaolin will bring you to eat delicious food." After saying that, Xiaolin hung up the phone. Aju was still a little confused. Baizhuan saw the opportunity and walked over. He chuckled. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Brother Xiaolin told us to get busy first." Aju frowned in confusion. "But I didn't say that I was busy. It's so strange." Baizhuan took the phone from her hand and easily found an excuse for Xiaolin. "He's probably busy." Of course, he would not tell Aju what Xiaolin was thinking. "Be good, go take a shower first." Baizhuan pushed Aju into the bathroom. Aju was smart. As soon as she was drenched, she realized why Xiaolin said that. What she said just now was too ambiguous. Could it be that Brother Xiaolin thought that she and Baizhuan had done something bad? Thinking of this, the little tiger, who had always been a good boyfriend, could not help but blush a little. So much so that after taking a shower, when she lay on her bed, the heat had not subsided yet. Seriously speaking, this was the first time she had spent the night in the same room as Baizhuan since she left the Bai family. Phew! She would try her best not to violate her sexual guard anyway. Fortunately, Baizhuan still had a guest room here. Otherwise, if they slept in the same bed, her resistance would definitely be greatly reduced. Thinking of this, Aju reached out and covered her face with the quilt. However, her heart could not be controlled. It was beating wildly, and even the pulse on her body was a little fast. It was not like her usual self at all. The blood flowing in her veins had also become sticky, as if it was oozing sugar. However, even if she wrapped herself up completely, she could not hide some inexplicable feelings. It seemed that the mission could only be completed tomorrow. In any case, she could not see Baijuan's face that could cause people to commit crimes anymore. However, when she finally calmed down a little, the door was open from the outside. She did not need to think to know who it was. Other than her, there was only, I wanted to drink just now, but who knew that the wine bottle would fall? The bed and blanket over there were wet, so I could only come over to sleep. Aju, do you mind sharing half of the bed with Baijuan? Baijuan's upper body was naked, and he was holding a pillow in his left hand. His eyes were as deep as the deep sea. When he met Aju's gaze, the corners of his mouth seemed to be smiling. Normally Aju would not mind, but now, she was afraid that a rabbit like her would pounce on Baijuan. She was still thinking of a reason to refuse. However, it was obvious that Baijuan did not intend to hear a negative answer. After asking, he walked to the bedside, placed the pillow there, and lay down as well. That man's breath that was difficult to ignore assaulted her face, making her feel defenseless. Aju's tiger eyes widened. She did not know why, but her hands and feet felt a little hot and soft. Especially when Baijuan lay down and spoke, that warmth swept past her ears bit by bit. That feeling was even more obvious. It was soft and numb. Chapter 1286. What are you thinking about? Baijuan turned his handsome face to the side and asked the person beside him. That pair of eyes was a little too beautiful in the night. The distance was too close. So close that Aju could touch his bare chest with just a move of her fingers. It was really a strange feeling. He was completely different from when he was young. He was so firm, full of tension and well-defined muscles. All of these meant that the little brother had already become a man. Aju was like a tiger, growling in her throat. Seeing that she did not speak, Baijuan raised his eyebrows. He stretched out his slender fingers and moved the corner of the blanket in front of her away. His voice was very pleasant. How many times have I told you not to cover your face with the blanket when you sleep? It's not good for your respiratory tract. Without the cover of the blanket, Aju only felt that every part of her cells was being invaded by that aura, and her heartbeat was also in chaos. However, those good-looking thin lips and chin were swaying in front of her eyes. She really wanted to be kissed just like that. No, she could not be so reckless. She had to restrain herself. Aju told herself domineeringly that she could not bully the little brother just because she was strong. Baijuan glanced at her and saw her clenching her hands. He knew that she would already feel uncomfortable because of his proximity. His eyes darkened. It seemed that 3 years was indeed a distance. Why aren't you saying anything? Baijuan looked at the person beside him with a smile. The wine had already been poured, so of course it would not be wasted. He and Aju did not need to sleep in 2 rooms. Aju also wanted to say something, so that she could divert her attention from the little brother's abs. But what should she say? Oh right, her mission. Little brother, there's a question. My classmate wants me to ask you, Aju said mysteriously. This made Baijuan curious. What question? What kind of girl do you like? As soon as Aju said this, she saw that her little brother's gaze had changed. It was as if he was a little cold. He just looked at her like that, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Aju, under normal circumstances, I don't like you to ask such questions on behalf of others. Baijuan reached out and pinched Aju's chin. It seemed to mean that she should not ask again in the future. Otherwise he might be unhappy. Was this a rejection? Aju said blankly. Actually, I'm not asking on behalf of others. I also want to know. Hearing this, Baijuan suddenly laughed. His waistline on the side carried a seductive undulation in the night. If Aju wants to know, then she definitely has to say it. First of all, she has to be strong. He was right. Aju's eyes lit up. She immediately raised her fingers and began to count. 1. Baijuan raised his eyebrows. What does 1 mean? Don't worry about it, little brother. Just continue speaking. He looked more serious than ever. Bai Juan looked at her, and his smile became even wider. There was a heavy doting look in his eyes. Your skin is very white. Too. Aju looked very happy. One could see the happiness in her dull tiger eyes. Is there anything else? Also, the template was right in front of him, so it was not difficult for Bai Juan to think about it. He recalled a little. Their brains are slow, so it's easier to raise them. Aju subconsciously retorted. I'm not stupid. Bai Juan suddenly paused and lifted her chin with his finger. His eyes sparkled. You know, I knew it before. Aju frowned worriedly and said, I just don't know if little brother has changed now. I'm not stupid. But when they ask me what kind of girl you like, I'm referring to me. Bai Juan's heart trembled when he heard Aju's words. His voice and thin lips both lowered. It's never changed. But Aju, do you like the same as me? In just an instant, the air in Aju's chest seemed to have been sucked out. Little brother's lips, which made people want to kiss him, were very close to her. They were so close that even her breath could hit his lips. However, he did not kiss her. It was such a close distance that made people feel hot all over. Aju wanted to withdraw, but her chin was fixed by him. He was so domineering. He was not like his usual self at all. Be good, tell little brother, do you like the same as me? That kind of posture was extremely seductive. Every word he said, and the breath he exhaled brushed against her lips bit by bit. There was some tingling and numbness that made people's hearts tighten. Aju gripped the quilt in her palm. For some reason her breath also softened. It should be the same. Oh. Before she could finish her sentence, Bai Juan's lips fell. At the beginning, he did not kiss her very deeply. Instead, he held her lips and kissed them bit by bit. Aju still wanted to push him away. Then, Bai Juan used his strength and hugged her waist and pressed down heavily. Aju's entire body was numb. Her mind was blank, and she could only passively follow Bai Juan. At that moment, Bai Juan's true form was revealed. It was probably because he had yearned for it for too long. After removing the gentle shell, it was a strong possessiveness. Aju always had a way to make him go crazy. As early as when he was enlightened, she was an existence that made him unable to resist. Many nights, he hid the most survival thoughts in the bathroom. He wanted to hug her, invade her, and make her completely belong to him. He wanted her so much that his body hurt. But he didn't dare to tell her. He was so worried that she would discover his secret. Now he finally didn't have to worry anymore. His Aju was his from the beginning to the end. Sensing that Bai Juan's strength had increased, Aju's fist involuntarily stretched out. With a swoosh. Fortunately, it was Bai Juan. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be punched out. Bai Juan tilted his head and pressed her down with his hand. For some reason, a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. It was as if even the black hair in front of him was wet. He looked down at Aju from above. Both of their breaths were very chaotic, and they could not control the sweetness of it. Aju also saw her fist. She was stunned for a moment before she explained gloomily, If I said that it was just a conditioned reflex, would you believe me? Yes. Bai Juan bent down and kissed her lips. He pressed her wrist with one hand and said in a deep voice, But you almost hit me just now, so you have to tell me, what's your next conditioned reflex action? Aju thought for a moment, and decided to tell her little brother honestly. I'll probably lift you up and throw you under the bed. Bai Juan was speechless. Some information and short stories will be published on the public account. Zenkisho. Chapter 1287. Seeing that what she said was true, Bai Juan really couldn't hold it in anymore. He lowered his eyes and pressed it against Aju's forehead. He let out a long sigh. You didn't have this habit in the past. Why do you have it now? Big brother and second brother trained me. It's like a psychological cue. They said that if anyone dares to approach me in the future, I will throw them out of bed. Aju's small brows also furrowed. Big brother also said that this way, it can prevent me from violating the precepts of lust. Moreover, at that time, he also emphasized that I should be wary of Bai Juan. Hearing this, Bai Juan completely understood that his two extremely smart brothers-in-law were originally targeting him. If it were anyone else, a Jew would have already started beating them up. To be honest, if a Jew really made a move, even he did not have the confidence to suppress her strength. However, Master Bai's greatest advantage was that he was not shocked by honor or disgrace. Even if he already knew that this special training was targeted at him, he could still treat it as if this matter was not targeted at him. He was very calm. Your big brother asked you to be wary of other people with the surname Bai. Am I someone else? A Jew shook her head. She felt that something was wrong. However, Bai Juan's overly handsome face was too close to her. His legs, which were wearing military pants, rubbed against her little by little. A Jew could not even concentrate on her thoughts, let alone consider whether it was right or not. Bai Juan reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist. He kissed her ear from the side. Could it be that in a Jew's heart, I am still someone else? No. A Jew trembled. Her hand involuntarily hugged Bai Juan's arm. She wanted to maintain her voice, but her face was red and her tailbone was numb. Even her words were intermittent. Seeing this, Bai Juan's fingers forcefully tore open the buttons of her pajamas. Then one kiss after another followed. It was so densely packed that it made one's entire body burn. His back was very good-looking. Even in the dark night, a Jew could feel the strength of Zhang Yang. It had a very stimulating effect. He kissed her neck gently, and even his breath was hot. A Jew had never experienced this before. She could only grab Bai Juan's arm like that. Her lips were about to break from biting. Bai Juan's heart ached when he saw this. He gently kissed her lips. His fingers covered the softness that he had dreamed of. Little brother. A Jew couldn't take it anymore. She reached out and hugged Bai Juan's neck. Bai Juan's kiss slowed down. The voice that was attached to her ear was bewitching. Is it comfortable? A Jew could not say anything. She felt as if her entire body had turned into water. The delicate skin was at his fingertips. The smooth touch was more than 10 times better than what he had imagined. The color in Bai Juan's eyes grew darker and darker. It was so dark that just when a Jew thought that he would take her at all costs. However, he suddenly stopped kissing her collarbone, burying his head in her neck. A Jew's face was already red and her tongue was dry. Her face was at a loss after the joy. Undoubtedly on this day, the little brother gave her a lot of happiness, a joy that belonged to a young girl. However, she did not understand. Why did he stop? Was little brother asking her to retaliate against him? However, Bai Juan didn't think so. After a while, he seemed to smile and reached out to touch her head. All right, go to sleep. I'll go next door to see if there are any other quilts. After saying that, he really stood up. A Jew lay on the bed, looking at the ceiling with her 2 round tiger eyes. Woof woof woof. He didn't even give her a chance to retaliate. Why? After Bai Juan left the bedroom, his first reaction was not to get a quilt. Instead, he strode into another bathroom and turned on the shower without thinking. He did not care how cold the water was and started to flush himself. That part of his military pants was already a little swollen. He almost doubted whether he would be able to control himself if this continued. After all, that feeling was too wonderful. She was in his arms, her face red as he rubbed her. Damn it! A certain part of his body did not have any intention of disappearing. Instead, because of his recollection, it grew bigger. Bai Juan lowered his eyes. His black hair with water droplets fell down, but it could not hide his fierce eyes. He stretched out his right hand, followed by waves of deep panting. A Jew lay on the bed, her body still emitting an unusual residual heat. She tossed and turned again. She did not know if this counted as breaking her sexual abstinence. A Jew sat down cross-legged. Her long black hair was spread on the bed, but her heart was still a little tight. She thought about it carefully. She did not reject anything that her little brother did to her. She also liked to be with her little brother. Since he still liked her now, did that mean that she could become his wife in the future? If she was not sure, she would settle this matter first. Although this was a little unfair to Buddha Wuli, Buddha was loved by so many people. Her little brother had always been alone since he was young. She could not let go of her little brother. After thinking this through, a Jew immediately became energetic. Her round eyes were very bright. Bai Juan came back after taking a cold shower and saw this scene. He had been gone for less than an hour. After such a long time, He thought that a Jew had already fallen asleep. He did not expect to see a little wild cat. "Why aren't you sleeping?" This time, Baijuan did not sleep directly beside a Jew like last time. Instead, he took another thin blanket to avoid skin-to-skin contact. He was afraid that he would not be able to hold it in. A Jew smiled. That kind of eyebrows always made people feel that it was suffocating. Baijuan was once again glad that he was able to return to a Jew's side when he was supposed to. Otherwise, with such a face, it was inevitable that some blind people would come over. He hated anyone who had thoughts about a Jew. "I'm waiting for you, little brother." As a Jew said this, she tilted her head. "Just now you said that you still like me, right?" Baijuan looked at her seriously, looking for him to confirm. He could not help but laugh. He even could not help but kiss her cheek. "Yes, I will only like you for the rest of my life." It was undeniable that when she heard the word "for the rest of her life," a Jew's heart was really sweet. However, she had not forgotten the business that she needed to settle. "Since you like me, and I like you too, then you should marry me tomorrow." It is a modern sweet novel. The female and male protagonists are both very handsome. I hope to see a familiar beauty appear. Today, I will discuss with Gue Gue and the others to see what kind of new book activity we will do. Chapter 1288. A Jew spoke very seriously. That little tiger face was very cute and intimidating. However, such an unexpected proposal made Baijuan a little confused. Get married? Why did the topic suddenly jump to marriage? Moreover, even if they were going to get married, shouldn't he be the one to say it? When a Jew saw that Baijuan had paused, she thought that he was unwilling. She was very overbearing and persistent. "Little brother, you can't kiss someone and be irresponsible. It's decided. We'll get married tomorrow." Mommy had said that she had to confirm the relationship immediately. Otherwise, he would be snatched away by others. Little brother was so handsome. There must be a lot of people staring at him. She had to make the first move. Baijuan looked at the determined look of the person in his arms and couldn't help but laugh. "A Jew, you haven't reached the legal age to get married yet." "That's right." A Jew was also stunned. How could she forget this matter? However, she said, "Little brother, if you don't want to get married immediately, you can tell me directly. I'll choose another." This time, before a Jew could finish her words, Baijuan interrupted her. "Bring your ID card tomorrow morning." "For what?" A Jew was a little confused. Baijuan reached out and carried her over. The smile in his eyes made him look extremely gentle. "Of course, we're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get married. Didn't you just say that I'm not old enough?" In fact, she was just proposing. She didn't want to get married. A Jew's tiger eyes widened. Baijuan's voice was deep. "If you're not old enough, then use some other methods. But I haven't prepared a dowry yet." A Jew looked at that doll-like beautiful face and said, "I can't let little brother be so wronged. I have to buy a ring and flowers for little brother. I also have to kneel down on one knee. Although I'm a monk, I still know the basic etiquette of a proposal. If little brother gets married to me like this, it will make you feel wronged." Ever since Baijuan heard a Jew's words, the smile on his face never stopped. He turned his eyes and kissed the corner of her cute mouth. "You won't feel wronged. Just marry me. So easy." A Jew was a little sad. "I always feel that it's not right not to give you something when we get married." Baijuan rubbed her long hair. "No, I gave it to you a long time ago." "When did you give it?" A Jew's round tiger eyes lit up even more. Baijuan carried her over. "Weren't you the one who gave me the cake? Alaska?" That was clearly a birthday present, a Jew muttered. Compared to the things that her little brother had given her, it was really far inferior. "Why don't we go and get the certificate another day? Let me prepare first." A Jew thought for a while and came up with such a method. Baijuan's hand suddenly tightened. Then he slowly said, "Tomorrow is a good day. There's only one good day this month. If we miss it, we'll have to wait for a long time. Isn't a Jew worried that someone will confess to me? I'll get married tomorrow." A Jew immediately made a decision. "I'll make up for the dowry in the future." After Baijuan's reminder, a Jew finally remembered the purpose of her proposal. It was to occupy him as soon as possible. The time could not be changed. It would be fine if she waited for a day or two, but if it was too long, it would definitely be troublesome. Aju was still in Baixuan's arms, calculating her own little abacus. That little scholar's look was simply adorable. Only then did Baixuan let go of the strength in his hand. His deep eyes were filled with a faint light. Sometimes happiness came too suddenly. It always made people at a loss. However, after he reacted, Baixuan's IQ successfully came online. With one last guidance, he immediately made Aju agree to go and get the certificate tomorrow. That night he really could not sleep. Even the breath of the person in his arms was sweet. That soft long hair rubbed against his cheek from time to time, and a faint fragrance seeped into his nose. The delicate body in his arms was also soft and warm. Hugging her was like hugging a small stove. To be more precise, it was a little sun. She had always been his sunshine. From the moment she wore a monk's robe and held a meat bun in her mouth, looking at him adorably and calling him little brother, he knew that he would no longer be the only person in his world. Anyone who had been saved by the sunshine would not want to fall into the darkness again. He was the same. Therefore, he had to keep her by his side, no matter what methods he had to use. The next day, Aju was carried out of bed by Baixuan. Her eyes were still asleep. She reached out and rubbed them. She did not know where her little brother got a car from. It was a military Hummer. The license plate was very easy to remember. There was a red logo in front of it. Aju was bent over and placed in the passenger seat by Baixuan. She looked left and right before she finally became energetic. When she thought about it, she remembered that she had proposed to him last night. "Little brother, are we going to the Civil Affairs Bureau now?" Aju asked. "Isn't it a little too early? It's all foggy outside." In the northern sky, the air would become bad as soon as autumn arrived. If one went out too early, they would usually see a thin layer of haze. The temperature was not like summer, which made one's whole body sticky. Instead, when the morning wind blew, there was a cold feeling. Even the uncle who swept the floor had not come out yet. The Civil Affairs Bureau should not be open yet, right? Aju was indeed right. However, she could not withstand Baixuan's sometimes black-bellied overbearingness. "Don't worry, someone will handle the procedures for us." As he said that, Baixuan took out his phone and made a call. On the other end, the director of a certain bureau was still sleeping soundly. One had to know that at their age, it was really not easy to sleep well, right? He had to prevent the tigress at home from checking on him. And he also had to drink and drink outside. If he did not have some psychological quality, he would not be able to do this job at all. Therefore, the director of a certain bureau was very persistent about sleeping. He had specially instructed his subordinates not to call him in the morning if there was nothing important. But on this day, for some reason, the phone on the bedside kept ringing nonstop. The director of a certain bureau flipped it over and over. When he saw that it was a number without a name, he thought that it was his subordinate, so he was immediately angry. "How many times have I told you? Don't call me in the morning. Which branch are you from? Huh, you don't even know this little rule. Tell me your name, I have to." "Baixuan." Master Bai's thin lips opened slightly, and he said two words in a faint voice. The director of a certain bureau on the other side shuddered, and almost threw the phone in his hand out. He must be having a nightmare. Yes, he must be having a nightmare. He had been out of the army for so many years, how could he still hear this name? Let him calm down first. Calm down, the nightmare will wake up. The director of a certain bureau did not believe that this call was real, so he pinched his thigh hard. It actually hurt. This was not scientific. Chapter 1289. Was it not a dream? Viper Viper. The director of a certain bureau said the code name that he did not want to mention until now. Baixuan smiled. "It seems that you haven't forgotten me, Weasel." "Don't call me Weasel." The director of a certain bureau immediately flew into a rage. Back then, his code name was so mighty and domineering, Yellow Emperor. However, he met a youth in the special forces. That youth was none other than their captain at that time, Viper Baixuan. He was a soldier who was outstanding in all aspects, but he actually let a youth be the captain. At that time, he was quite unconvinced, so he tried to provoke him. Who would like to have a captain who was so younger than them, right? Who would have thought that as soon as he made a move, he would be knocked down by someone. Moreover, he was even given a code name that made him want to jump into the river, Weasel. No, Captain, can we discuss this? Look at how younger you are than me. At my age, I can already be your uncle. Can you not mention my dark history? It had been 2 years. The director's wife rarely saw her husband, who was already starting to have a small belly, talk to anyone in such a nice tone. After all, he came from the army and always had an arrogant air about him. Even her father had never been like this. The director's wife was inexplicably curious about who was talking to him on the phone. Who is it? She propped herself up and asked. Director Huang immediately took the phone to the other side and said very seriously, a former comrade. Comrade? The director's wife smiled. I've seen all of your comrades. Why does this sound so young? You just called him Captain. Director Huang immediately said, you heard wrong. Be good and continue to sleep. I'll go to the toilet to make a call. The director's wife was speechless. Be good. One had to know that her husband had never used such a word to her before. Usually he looked like a proper person. Now, she looked at her husband's back as he hurried into the bathroom. For some reason she smiled. After knowing him for so many years, she still didn't know that he had such a side to him. How should she put it? It was a little cute. Director Huang sat on the toilet like a weasel. He was afraid that his wife would hear something, and even locked the door. Bai Zhuan asked slowly from the other side. Was that sister-in-law? Why don't you let me say something? I'll let you say a few words and we'll divorce. Director Huang retorted internally, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Instead, he seemed to have realized something. How did you know my current contact number? He had clearly blacklisted all the people who should have been blacklisted, and even used a cancellation account to avoid this evildoer. Why was the other party so persistent? Bai Zhuan laughed. As he stretched out his hand to wipe the corner of Ajiz's mouth, he casually replied, Weasel, if I were you, I wouldn't ask such a stupid question. Director Huang. Will you die if you don't have a sharp tongue? Then why did you call me? It couldn't be to disturb his sleep, right? What time is it? Don't reptiles need to rest? Bai Zhuan retracted his hand and handed the soy milk in plain bag that he had bought very early to a Jew. Then he focused his attention on the phone again. It's nothing. It's just that I'm going to get married, so I'm going to get involved with you. This was the first time he had seen someone use their connections so confidently. Weasel. Oh no. Director Huang was just about to scold the other party when his throat suddenly choked. You tell me, what are you going to do? He couldn't be blamed for stuttering. That person who had never even looked at women, even when the recruits in the army were watching movies, he would eat and read with an indifferent expression, was actually going to get married. He had always thought that he liked men. Was that not the case? No. He had to confirm it again. Well, is the person you want to marry a man or a woman? It was not impossible for a man. Otherwise, why would he use his connections? He could just go directly to the bureau chief to get the marriage certificate. He believed that as long as he showed a man's face, there would be a large number of women who would clamor to marry him without him mentioning his identity. Was there a need to use his connections? And he even called early in the morning. This was not normal at all. After hearing Director Huang's words, Bai Zhuan raised his eyebrows dangerously. Before he could answer, a Jew, who was sitting beside him, swallowed the bun in her mouth and said seriously to the other side, I'm a woman, not a man. Director Huang was stunned. He thought that there was something wrong with his ears. Needless to say, this voice was really pleasant to hear. Captain Bai. I really didn't expect that you would really find yourself a girlfriend. Was the world a fantasy? Bai Zhuan smiled and said, Weasel, if you ask unrealistic questions again, I might bring them to your house one day. Director Huang knew who he was referring to. That group of problem soldiers were all from the Red Meow Party. They were really good at tearing apart people's karma. This was simply a threat, a blatant threat. Director Huang gritted his teeth so hard that they hurt. I won't ask anymore. But does the old chief know about your marriage? Bai Zhuan was the only grandson of the Bai family. If he really got married, the Bai family should have sent him an invitation long ago. Not to mention sending an invitation the last time he bumped into the old man. The old man even said that his grandson was waiting for someone. He was still far from having a girlfriend. How could he get married just like that? After the procedures are done, I will tell grandfather. Bai Juan was very calm. After saying this, he added in a low voice, "Right now only you, me, and my lover know about this matter. If a third person receives any news, you should understand my methods." Hearing this, Director Huang immediately dispelled the thought of informing the old chief in his heart. I won't tell anyone." Bai Juan smiled faintly and said, "Director Huang is still smart." It was not easy for him to change from Weasel to Director Huang. Director Huang himself said that he was even more terrified. One had to know that if there was nothing important for him to do, Bai Juan would not call him Director Huang. "Captain Bai, what exactly do you want me to do? If you stick your head out, you'll be stabbed. If you don't, you'll be stabbed as well." Bai Juan started the car with one hand and put on a black military earpiece in his left ear. "Nothing. I just want to go to your place to get a certificate." "That's easy," Director Huang said very straightforwardly. "When the bureau opens at 9 o'clock, I will immediately call someone to get it done for Captain Bai." Bai Juan's slightly cold voice sounded again. It was low and deep, as if this was the first time in his life that he revealed his emotions in front of an outsider. "I can't wait until 9 o'clock. Chapter 1290. Director Huang was stunned when he heard the words on the other side. He had really never seen anything that Bai Juan could not wait for. Moreover, it was only 9 o'clock now. There were only 2 hours left. Was he really in such a hurry to get married? He couldn't even wait for more than 2 hours? "You start changing now and go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I'll wait at the door." Bai Juan was still so logical when he commanded people. "I'll give you 20 minutes. If I don't see you in 20 minutes. Needless to say, it was definitely a threat again. Director Huang was anxious. 20 minutes. The capital is so congested. What if I'm stuck on the road? Your house is only a 10-minute walk away from the Civil Affairs Bureau." After Bai Juan said this, he hung up the phone. Director Huang, on the other hand, felt goosebumps all over his body. Captain Bai actually knew where he was staying. Captain Bai was not someone to be trifled with. In the Hummer, a Jew finished the bun in her left hand. There was still one left in her right hand. She had left it for Bai Juan. Seeing that Bai Juan had hung up the phone, she immediately handed it to him. Bai Juan held the steering wheel with his fingers. While waiting for the red light, his gaze fell on her bulging cheeks. His smile was very faint. "I'm driving. I can't free my hands." If Director Huang and the soldiers heard this, they would definitely vomit blood. One had to know that when Bai Juan was fighting in the desert, he could control the steering wheel with one hand and hold a submachine gun with the other. The speed of the car was as high as 100, and every time, he would swing his tail beautifully. Therefore, driving with one hand was not a big deal for Bai Juan. However, he acted as if he really wanted to eat it, but he couldn't. A Jew knew that Bai Juan's stomach was not good, so she said with a small face, "I'll take it and feed you." Okay. His goal was achieved. The blackness in Bai Juan's eyes increased a little. A Jew kept her word. She opened the plastic bag and brought the bun to Bai Juan's lips. Bai Juan lowered his head and took a bite. The smile at the corner of his mouth could not be hidden. A Jew also smiled. She did not know why, but she felt that this was very good. When she was young, it was always her little brother who fed her. Now that she had grown up, she could also feed her little brother. She tilted her head to look at the side profile of his heroic spirit. He was so handsome and noble that even the hair on his face could be seen clearly. He ate what she fed him. As long as he thought of this matter, even the air he breathed in seemed to become sweet. A Jew sat in the passenger seat and watched Bai Juan drive with her round tiger eyes. The first to give up was Lord Bai. Before they arrived at the destination, he parked the car by the roadside and reached out to unbuckle his seatbelt. He suddenly turned sideways, pinched her little chin, and kissed her. A Jew was still holding a steamed bun in her left hand. The pleasant smell of toothpaste mixed with the fragrance of noodles filled every cell in her body. The tip of her tongue was almost numb. Only then did Bai Juan end the kiss and gently bite her lower lip. His voice was hoarse. Don't always look at me. You will be affected. Oh. A Jew stuck out the tip of her small tongue and licked the place where Bai Juan had bitten her. Then she smiled. At this moment, Director Huang had already arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The guard wondered why he had come to the unit so early. Director Huang didn't want to say anything. He just wanted to have some peace and quiet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the energy to face the monster later. The drive from the apartment to the Civil Affairs Bureau was not far. In addition, there was no traffic jam at this time, and Bai Xuan's driving skills as the head of the Sanqi army. In less than 30 minutes, they arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The guard at the door was a local old man. The old man was still puzzled. What was going on today? Why did all of them come so early? Bai Juan nodded politely at him and held a Jew's hand as they walked into the hall. Then they went straight to the second floor, the director's office. When the door was pushed open, Director Huang was drinking tea. When he saw the person Bai Juan brought, he almost spat out all the tea. Is she an adult? This was what Director Huang wanted to ask the most. But he knew that he couldn't be so direct when talking to Bai Juan. Ha ha ha, Captain Bai, your lover is quite young. Director Huang put down the cup and wiped his glasses with a handkerchief. How could Bai Juan not understand the meaning behind that? He held a Jiz's hand and sat down. His voice was indifferent. In this room, other than you, everyone is young. Director Huang was speechless. Damn it, how could he be so sharp-tongued? But he was indeed nearly 20 years older than the other party. He couldn't live anymore. This is my ID card and 1-inch photo of her. Bai Juan pushed the things over. His slender fingers took Director Huang's purple sand teapot and poured a glass of water for a Jew. Then he continued. First, get all the information. Then, ask if we are willing to spend the rest of our lives with each other. Director Huang, are you the director or am I the director? You are a special forces soldier in the army. Do you have to be so clear about the process of the Civil Affairs Bureau? You usually have nothing to do but blindly study it yourself. This. Director Huang wiped his sweat and couldn't refuse directly. Well, Captain Bai, you know that your identity is special. If you want to get married, you have to get the approval document from the higher-ups. Only then can I let you follow the rules. When Bai Juan heard this, he took out another document from his handmade handbag. Director Huang looked at the content and date on it and was in a bad mood. You applied to get married the year you joined the army? Yes. Bai Juan answered Director Huang's words casually. He did not forget to turn around and tidy up Aja's long hair. Director Huang looked at this scene in disbelief. No one had ever made Bai Juan act like this before. It was as if he could smooth out all the sharpness on his body and only make people feel that slight itch. Had Bai Juan changed? No, he was still the poisonous snake that ate people without spitting out the bones in the past. But when facing this girl, even his eyes were unbelievably docile. There was almost no trace of fierceness in them. Did he tame a wolf into a dog? For some reason, Director Huang suddenly remembered what young Master Tang had said before. At that time, he was still wearing a well-ironed military uniform and stood in this position. His eyes were looking out of the window as he held a cigarette between his fingers. He said with a faint smile, Old Huang, every soldier in China has the bloodthirsty nature of a wolf. When necessary, they can wait for an opportunity without hesitation and bite anyone's neck to death. However, they know very well that what China needs is not a wolf but a dog. Therefore, even if they have the blood of a wolf and can dominate a region, they don't do that. Instead, they obediently put away their sharp claws and disguise themselves as dogs. This is because dogs are more humble and loyal than wolves. What the country needs is also this loyalty, and it is the same for the person they love the most. You ask me why I don't tell my girl everything about me. You even feel that I am using another side to deceive her. Old Huang, why don't you think about it? Perhaps only when I am by her side would I rather be a dog. At this moment, in the same place, Bai Juan was also like this. How could this pair of uncle and nephew be so similar? Director Huang didn't know why, but he felt a lump in his throat. Afraid that he would really cry, he quickly suppressed his emotions and cleared his throat. At that time, you weren't even 19 yet. Why are you thinking so far ahead? What if you want to register your marriage, and the person you marry isn't this person? A military marriage wasn't the same as a military marriage. It was already set in stone, and it wasn't easy to change it. It was impossible to change it. I won't. Bai Juan only gave him 2 words, and slowly took a sip of tea. Director Huang muttered. How can there be so many you won't? The army won't let you go. It's not certain when you can come back. What if the girl likes someone else? What will you do? Hearing this, Bai Juan glanced in his direction. That gaze was extremely cold. Director Huang's entire body was frozen. He had just praised him for being docile, but now he could simply kill. In fact, Director Huang did not know at all. Bai Juan was not afraid of anything. When he was carrying out a mission in the no man's land, his back was burned by the scorching sun. He was so thirsty that he thought that he would die in the desert. But even at that time, he was not afraid. All he wanted was to go back. Back to the country where she was. What he was most afraid of was the situation, like what Director Huang had said. Even if one day, he was in a dazzling light, she would fall in love with someone else. But even so, he still submitted the marriage application in the first year. Because other than her, he would not marry anyone else. If she did not belong to him, he would be stationed at the place where he protected her. Of course, he still had the most direct and deep thought in his heart. That was to snatch. Just by looking at his deep eyes, Director Huang knew what Bai Juan was thinking. However, he also admired Bai Juan. How much did he like her that he would hand his entire life to another person, when he was young, and did not even understand the world? This application form really proved that statement. The bloodline of the Tang family, the direct descendants of the Bai family, were all iron-willed lovers. Without asking Bai Juan anything else, Director Huang took the ID cards of the 2 people and began to check the household registration information. Bai Juan's information was originally confidential. Without his instructions, ordinary people really would not be able to find out. Director Huang had long been prepared for this, so he even brought the USB flash drive. However, what he did not expect was that this girl's information was also encrypted. Director Huang frowned and opened the page. After looking down twice, he almost threw the mouse in his hand out. Captain Bai, she is Juwei Corporation's. Director Huang was even trembling when he spoke. Bai Juan, on the other hand, was very calm. Don't tell anyone about this. Captain Bai. Director Huang wanted to go back on his words, so he seriously searched for the words. You should know that the 2 of you are not of legal age yet. Bai Juan raised the corners of his eyes and smiled. Of course I know. Otherwise, why would I look for you, the director? Captain Bai, you can't cheat your own people like this. You know, right? The 2 young masters of Juwei Corporation. The big one is popular all over the world, and the small one controls the economy. Which one of these 2 people isn't a sister con? Even ahem. Director Huang lowered his voice and said to Bai Juan, even this girl's hidden information states that no one with the surname Bai can get close to her. Master Bai, tell me honestly, did they already know that you want to marry her sister? Bai Juan did not deny it. They also have people in the army. My application information is right there, so of course they will see it. Is it really good for you to be so self-righteous? The key is that if I agree to it, what if the 2 young masters find out later? Bai Juan naturally knew his worries. Don't worry, if anything happens, they will look for me first. They won't implicate you. Director Huang looked at those deep eyes. Perhaps it was because the memories just now had touched him too much, so he gritted his teeth. Wasn't it just a marriage certificate? Special circumstances required special treatment. Even if he was really implicated, as long as these 2 children were willing, he would accept it. Moreover, there was still the Tang family protecting him. Thinking of this, Director Huang sat up straight again and met Aj's incomparably clear eyes. They were quite curious, as if they were asking a director why he was whispering. Ahem. Director Huang coughed and straightened his attitude. He asked Aju, Bai Ligio, are you willing to marry Bai Juan? You weren't abducted or threatened. When Aju heard such words, she instinctively frowned. She did not forget to defend Bai Juan at all. Uncle Director, little brother has never threatened me. Moreover, I was the one who proposed to him. I don't have time to buy a wedding ring yet. After I get the marriage certificate from you later, I will bring little brother to buy a wedding ring. A Jew said it openly, but Director Huang's jaw almost dropped when he heard it. He had guessed the ending of the story, but he did not guess the beginning. She was the one who proposed this marriage? Wasn't it a little upside down? Captain Bai, aren't you the one who proposed? Director Huang looked at Bai Juan with disdain. You have the nerve to ask a girl to buy a wedding ring for you. When Bai Juan heard this, his smile became even wider. Why should I be embarrassed? After we get the marriage certificate, she will be my wife. Why should I be embarrassed with my wife? Director Huang was speechless. Had no one ever said that you were very thick-skinned? Then let me ask you now. Bai Juan, do you really want to marry Bai Lijiao? This time, Bai Juan did not use any half-smile tone. Instead, he was very serious. Even his voice was deep. I'm sincere. I won't marry anyone but her in this life. Bang! A very soft sound followed Director Huang's finger. A small stamp covered the 1-inch photo of the two of them, turning into a small red book. And Ajiz's household registration information on the computer also changed from unmarried to married. Chapter 1291. Beside President Song were a few other executives in the industry. When they saw him like this, they all guessed the identity of this young man in front of them. Bai Juan did not give them any chance to see a Jew. He stretched out his left hand and pulled a Jew into his embrace. He let her face lean against his chest and said indifferently, I just came back a few days ago. When President Song saw that he was talking to him, his face instantly bloomed with a smile. If the old man knew that you were back, he would definitely be very happy. 2 days ago, the old man kept talking about young Master Bai. When a Jew heard old Master Bai's name, she raised her little face that was buried in Bai Juan's arms. Bai Juan supported her and glanced at President Song from the corner of his eyes. When President Song saw this situation, he knew that Bai Juan did not want them to see the person in his arms. He hurriedly said, Young Master Bai has something to do first. Let's walk around casually. When young Master Bai has time, I'll treat you. Bai Juan did not say anything. He only replied with a calm yes. When the salesperson saw her boss's attitude towards Bai Juan, she did not know how to hand over the pair of rings in her hand, or whether she should remind the lady to pay the bill. President Song was also a smart person. He quickly saw through it and immediately said, What does young Master Bai want? Wrap it up for him immediately. This meant that Bai Juan was not going to pay for it. The salesperson immediately said, Yes. She quickly handed the exquisite packaging bag in her hand to a Jew. However, a Jew did not take it. Her eyes were as dark as the night. I'll pay the bill first. I'll come back to get it after swiping my card. Pay what bill? President Song chuckled and said, Young Master Bai came to get something. How can he pay the bill? Miss, just take it as a token of my appreciation. Bai Juan's deep eyes moved away from Ajiz's face. He was about to speak, but he was interrupted by a Jew. Her voice was very polite and unhurried. Little brother is the same as ordinary people. When you come out to buy things, you will pay the bill. Moreover, this was not bought by little brother, but by me. So I can only thank this gentleman for his kindness. President Song did not expect to be rejected. He still wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to the Bai family. How could it be? Young Master Bai, look. Mr. Song, you're not convinced and still want to say something. At this moment, Bai Juan smiled brilliantly. This pair of wedding rings was bought by my wife as a token of love for me. President Song, don't you want my wife to express her love for me? How could this be? President Song subconsciously waved his hand. When he realized what Bai Juan had said, his expression suddenly changed. You your wife? A love gift? When did you get married? Probably because she was too shocked by the news, she accidentally asked the question that was in her heart. Bai Juan laughed softly. He had no intention of hiding it. Today, President Song really wanted to ask if old master knew about this. But asking like that would mean crossing the line. But he was still very curious, especially about the girl lying on young Master Bai's chest. But even when she was talking, young Master Bai was there to protect her. so he only saw half of her face. Obviously, Baijuan did not want these people to see Aju. He took out a black card and handed it to the counter clerk. There's no password. Go and swipe it. Aju moved again. She looked like a small animal. She had agreed that she would pay the bill. But she also knew that it was best not to argue with the little brother on such an occasion. If there was anything, they could settle it when they got home. When Aju thought of this, she became obedient again. Baijuan lowered his head and looked at her little face that wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when he saw the child lying in his arms and not saying anything, he could not help but touch her cheek. When we get back, you can return it to me. Yes. Aju liked the feeling that she did not say anything, and the little brother knew what she was thinking. The counter clerk was at the side and handed over the black card that Baijuan had swiped with both hands. After Baijuan took the card, President Song immediately made way for them. When the rest of the people saw that Baijuan had left, they started to ask at once, President Song, who was that? Why does he look so extraordinary? He even dares to not give you face. President Song loosened his tie. The young master of the Bai family, what face does he need to give me? Bai family? Which Bai family? President Song replied. Which Bai family is there here? You're saying that he's the mysterious Bai clan. That's right. When you see him in the future, you have to avoid him. No one can afford to offend this person. Those people weren't thinking about hiding or not. They were thinking about networking. I really didn't expect young Master Bai to be so young and so good-looking. I've heard people say before that he was still in school at that time. He was already an influential figure in the courtyard. But didn't they say that he went to join the army? Is he back? Why is he married? That's right. He's actually married. Is this for real? President Song was amused when he heard this. Alright, I know what you guys are thinking. You girls can save it. What young Master Bai said is false. You guys saw young Master Bai's attitude towards that girl just now. He protected her the entire time, and didn't even let us take a look. It can be seen how good he is to people. At this point, President Song turned his head and asked his subordinates, did they come to choose the ring themselves? Were there no soldiers following behind them? The salesperson didn't expect their CEO to speak to a small employee like her. She immediately shook her head. It's just the two of them. It seems that the young lady brought the gentleman here and said that she wanted to buy a ring for the gentleman. At first, they thought that the gentleman was being kept. They didn't expect that his background was so big that even the CEO had to be respectful to him. Moreover, there was that black card just now. It was a limited issue. Not everyone could get it. Only the super VIP users of a certain bank, who had a certain amount of influence in the world, and had a distinguished identity could get such a black card. Who would have thought that such a man's wedding ring was actually bought by a woman? The few presidents were also shocked when they heard the salesperson's words. Asking a woman to buy a wedding ring, however, Aju felt that it was nothing. The jade she was wearing was enough to buy a lot of wedding rings to play with at home. These were all given to her by Baijuan. Now, it was her turn to use a pair of wedding rings to trap her little brother. No matter how she thought about it, she was the one who had profited. Baijuan saw that she was smiling in his arms. He raised his eyebrows and asked, what are you so happy about? Of course I'm happy to take advantage of you. Aju was happy. Her little appearance was also very cute. Baijuan smiled faintly. If you like to take advantage of me so much, why didn't you agree to express your feelings to President Song just now? Chapter 1292. That won't do. Aju's face was serious. It's already hard enough for you to guard the border. As your wife, I can't drag you down. If I accept other people's things, what if they rely on you? Little brother's righteousness can't be tarnished just like that. Baijuan was stunned. He never thought that this would be the answer. He thought that she just wanted to buy a ring for him. He did not know how to describe that feeling. He had picked up a gun to protect others for too long. He had actually forgotten the feeling of being protected. His Aju had never changed. Baijuan chuckled and said, I really don't want to get too close to them. Yes, I can see that. Aju's eyes were wide open. She looked dull, but she was actually very smart. Bai Juan rubbed her head and led her over. The corners of his mouth were all smiles. It seemed that a Jew was more suitable to be his wife than he had imagined. His girl had grown up. In fact, a Jew had always been very good at reading these things. When Bai Juan walked forward, she did not forget to lean over and whisper in her little brother's ear. That President Song just now had a cunning face and cloudy eyes. He should be very fond of beautiful women. Lust is a knife above a knife. Sooner or later, something will happen to him. So little brother, you must not learn from these people, understand? I am enough for you. Bai Juan was very serious when he first listened. When he heard the last sentence, he could not help but turn around and laugh. You are enough? Isn't it? A Jew was a little conflicted. She thought about her own advantages. I know how to box, I can protect you. And I can also read people's faces. I am quite versatile. Bai Juan pulled her over and added for her with a smile. Why don't you say that you are very good-looking? You have to be humble. A Jew had a pair of round tiger eyes. She was very serious. Bai Juan now wanted to have a sofa where he could carry her up and put her on his lap. Why was she so cute? Little brother, don't smile all the time. A Jew pursed her lips. Just as Bai Juan was about to speak, a reporter brought the microphone over. Hello, sir. May I ask if you are boyfriend and girlfriend? We have some questions here about the degree of tacit understanding between couples. We want to ask you. A few couples have been interviewed just now. Are you willing to accept? Bai Juan's eyes swept over. It was simple equipment, and there were a few passers-by around. It was indeed an ordinary investigation. He smiled and said, Of course. Wow. That's great. I was just thinking that sir and this lady are a good match. It would be great if I could interview you. The reporter was very good at talking, and she was also very pretty. She held a microphone in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. Here's the problem. Please listen carefully. If you answered wrongly, you would be punished. Then may I ask, when was the last time you kissed? Please answer at the same time. A Jew paused, and her black gem eyes were stunned. Why did he ask such a question? Shouldn't she be asking him what his favorite food was? Ah, he had been tricked. A Jew thought for a moment and tried to answer correctly. However, she didn't know why. But whenever she thought of the image of her little brother kissing her, her heart couldn't take it anymore. Even her face was a little hot. She couldn't think of anything no matter how hard she tried. The reporter was probably anxious from waiting. He asked, Do you have an answer? The couples who had just been interviewed also wanted to hear the answers of these two people. After all, they were too good-looking. Beautiful things always made people stop and admire them. A Jew was obviously anxious, but the more anxious she was, the more confused her mind became. At this time, Bai Juan chuckled softly. He rubbed her head with his big palm and lowered his eyes to kiss her. Then he pressed the stunned Jew into his arms and faced the camera. He only said 2 words. Just now I saw you. In an instant, a Jew's face turned red. She leaned against Bai Juan's chest, revealing only her 2 erect strands of hair. The reporters on the street were stunned for a moment. When they reacted, their eyes were filled with envy. There were also the girls who were watching. They looked at Bai Juan, and then at their boyfriends. They couldn't help but let out a long sigh. After all, no girl would not be willing to be treated like that by her boyfriend. Such an answer and such an answer were really too sweet. The boys immediately understood what his girlfriend meant. They looked at Bai Juan with resentment in their eyes. Bro, it was one thing for you to be handsome, but why were you so good at making your girlfriend happy? Can't you give the others a chance to live, huh? Bai Juan, on the other hand, was very calm. Are there any other questions? No. The reporter shook her head, and only then did she come back to her senses. She glanced at the script. She had already thought of which scene to use for today's publicity. This pair was not only pleasing to the eye, but also very topical. How could it be so sweet? Unfortunately, the reporter did not know that just as she was still imagining how to make the theme, Bai Juan raised his hand as he brushed past her, and the recorded scene was blurred. After all, he was a special forces soldier, so of course he would often carry some high-end electronic equipment. He could not appear on TV, and he could not let any video fall outside. If he was alone, it would be fine. But once Aju was here, this scene could not exist. Sister Zhang, take a look. Why does this camera seem to have a problem? Ah, what's wrong? Can't we film it? No, it's just that there seems to be a video missing. The video that was missing was the video that the reporter wanted to use the most as a topic. How could this be? It was really like seeing a ghost. The reporter had been lowering her head and fiddling with the camera. When she raised her head and wanted to let the eye-catching couple record again, there was no one on the street. At this moment, Aju and Baijuan were sitting in the Hummer. Baijuan lifted her chin and continued the kiss just now. It was indeed sweet. On the tip of her tongue and lips, every part of her body was like eating a clear mint candy. When it bloomed in her mouth, her entire body was numb. Aju could clearly sense that this was the smell of her little brother for a long time. It smelled very good, so good that it could make people addicted. Especially when he bit her lower lip. Aju could not help but tremble. Even her eyes became wet. Baijuan lowered his eyes to look at the person in his arms. He took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the steering wheel. But after that, he did not do anything. Instead, he hugged Aju and bit her little shoulder. We still have training in the afternoon. Let's go eat something first, and then we'll go back to school together? Okay. Aju immediately agreed. Her classmates were still waiting for her answer. Just now, her roommates had sent her WeChat messages. She really should go back and tell them. Chapter 1293. However, there was one more thing. Aju raised her head and said, "Little brother, I'm getting married just like that. Shouldn't you tell my parents?" However, the answer was somewhat unexpected. I talked to my mother-in-law on the phone last night. Baijuan turned the steering wheel and turned his head to look at Aju. She has already agreed. Aju's round tiger eyes were stunned for a moment before she said, "Since she has agreed, then I won't make the call." Okay. Baijuan stopped and rubbed her head. Aju realized that her little brother especially liked to touch her head. So she moved closer and let Baijuan touch her head. Baijuan really found it a little difficult to control himself. He always wanted to kiss her and hug her. He was clearly still driving. When did he become so unprincipled? However, he had never had any principles in front of her. Baijuan was not lying. He had indeed spoken to Hellion Vivian on the phone last night. No matter how much he wanted to abduct his Aju, he had to go through the other party's parents. This was the least he could do. And it was because of this phone call. Hellion Vivian smiled. "Have you ever thought about what if I don't agree?" "Yes," Baijuan replied. "But I have to make this call." Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows, and the smile on the corner of her mouth became even wider. "Baijuan, I really didn't misjudge you. I'll leave Aju to you. But you know my two brats. If they find out that you abducted Aju, you'll suffer." Baijuan naturally knew how difficult it was to deal with his two brothers-in-law. Including marrying Aju, he had to agree to Hellion Vivian's conditions. He did not tell Aju anything. Her girl only needed to be happy to be his bride. She did not need to worry about anything else. Baijuan was also very clear that it was better to keep the matter of him marrying Aju a secret. But he was even more clear that his Aju wanted to share the joy with others. "You can call Grandpa." Baijuan handed the phone to her. Aju did not take it. Instead, she smiled and took out her phone. "I have Grandpa Bai's phone number. Use mine to call him." Okay. When Aju was on the phone, the hair on her head was still standing up. No matter how she looked at it, she looked cute. Old Master Bai, who had just finished a meeting, was immediately amused when he saw the incoming call. "Aju, why did you call grandfather?" Aju laughed at first, and her voice was very bright and clear. "Grandpa Bai, I'm married to little brother, and I even got a certificate. I'm a member of the Bai family from now on." What did you say?" Elder Bai suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. "Get married? Get a marriage license?" "No. When did his grandson come back?" Why didn't he know? When Aju heard Old Master Bai's roar, she was also stunned. "Grandfather, are you not happy that I married little brother? How could this be?" Old Master Bai immediately denied it and quickly organized his tone. "Aju, Grandpa looks forward to the stars and the moon every day. I hope that the two of you can be together as soon as possible. Grandpa had long recognized you as his granddaughter-in-law. Grandpa didn't even let Bai Shuan meet those people he had introduced to him. My grandson is Aju's, right? Aju was overjoyed when she heard that. It's also Grandpa's. Can you not sell me around like this? Bai Shuan came over with a light smile and gave Aju a suggestion. Let him give you a gift. A granddaughter-in-law must have a gift. Old Master Bai had already heard his grandson's voice on the other end of the phone. Now that he was close, he could not help but ask, when did you come back? Is what Aju said true? Are you married? Have you registered your marriage? When he said the word registered, Old Master Bai's voice trembled. When did this brat register their marriage? Aju was still young, right? Could she register it? But on second thought, his grandson must have used some kind of method again. Old Master Bai was a tough person and had been a good soldier all his life. But at this moment, he chose to turn a blind eye because he knew better than anyone how much his grandson had sacrificed in order to marry a Jew. He had gone through a few cold bones and returned full of injuries. Even when he was taking out the bullets on the hospital bed, he was still chanting that person's name. It was time to give him some reward. This grandson of his had propped up the Bai family and protected the territory when other people should have been in love. Now, he would let him do whatever he wanted. Forget it, Grandpa won't ask you anymore. You brat, there's no truth in your mouth. As Old Master Bai spoke, he added, Aju, when you have time, bring your little brother to visit Grandpa. Grandpa is in southern Tibet, and no one dares to play chess with Grandpa. When Aju heard this, she immediately nodded. October is almost here. When the school has a break, I will fly over. Then what about your wedding banquet? When do you plan to hold it? The more Old Master Bai spoke, the happier he became. Why don't we hold it in these 2 days? If old Lizzie and the others know that my grandson has married a wife, they will definitely be envious. I will call them in a while. As for your Grandpa Xiao, I want them to know that my Aju is still the most promising. She brought him home so early. Okay. Aju nodded even more vigorously this time. Bai Shuan held his forehead when he heard this. Chief Bai, it seems that I am your biological grandson, right? Speaking of bringing her home, it should be him bringing her home, right? Go, 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 go. Don't disturb my conversation with Aju. When Old Master Bai met Aju, he was like an old child who had returned to his childhood. Bai Shuan could not do anything about them, but he still answered Old Master Bai's question. Aju is still in school. It will not be good for her to hold a wedding like this. The army will not allow soldiers to fall in love with students. Although we are legal, the wedding will wait until Aju is an adult. Old Master Bai was so smart. How could he not understand what his grandson meant? These things were originally small matters. It was just that his grandson did not want Aju to suffer a little. After all, getting married while underage would always attract criticism. Aren't you afraid that Aju will meet a better man in university? Old Master Bai could not help but tease his grandson. University A is a place where talents gather. If I'm not wrong, you will only be back for a few days. You are about to return to the army, right? If you don't announce it, are you really not worried? How could he not be worried? The more he liked her, the more uneasy he would feel. These were the secrets hidden in the deepest part of Bai Shuan's heart. Even if they got married, they would have to face how far they would go, and what would happen in between. He could not predict it either. However, there was only one thing he was sure of. That was that he would never let go. Even if this certificate was obtained in a hurry, he still had to hold it firmly in his hand. Chapter 1294. But before he could say anything, Aju opened her mouth and said to the other side of the phone, Grandpa, don't talk nonsense. What can little brother be worried about? I like little brother so much because I was afraid that he would run away, so I proposed to him. Old Master Bai was stunned when he heard this. Then he laughed out loud. Aju, be good. Your little brother won't be able to run away in this lifetime. Yes, I know. Military marriages are protected by the law. You can't get a divorce casually. Aju held Bai Shuan's hand and said very seriously, From now on, little brother will be mine. Although listening to Aju's confession was a very beautiful thing, Baijuan also knew that if he continued to talk, the old man would laugh endlessly. He decisively took the phone from Aju's hand and hung up the phone. Baijuan knew very well what his grandfather was like. He reckoned that he had already started to call those grandpas in the courtyard to show off what happened today. Really? Baijuan smiled and shook his head. Aju did not understand what he was laughing at. She only decided that her stomach was very empty. She reached out and touched it. She raised her head and said, "Little brother, I'm hungry." "I know. I'll take you to a place to eat now," Baijuan said as he patted her head. Her breath was warm and her face was handsome. It could be said that when he treated Aju, Baijuan had never been ungentle. The two of them went to a vegetarian restaurant. Usually, restaurants like this were not cheap and good places. And the environment was also elegant. And the restaurant in front of them was one of the most famous deep alleys in the entire capital. Because it was quiet and secretive, it was deeply liked by the upper-class people and celebrities. This restaurant had been open for 3 years. It was said that the real boss had never appeared. Everyone only knew that he was a high-ranking disciple who came from the military compound. But no one knew who he was. However, there was one thing. No one dared to cause trouble here, and no paparazzi followed them here. It was very simple. If anyone did anything here, they would pay the price the next day. Similarly, this restaurant was not like other vegetarian restaurants, which rejected ordinary people because of the good environment. The dishes in the restaurant were definitely worth the money. As long as you could find this restaurant, the chef would give you the best cooking skills. Even if you only ordered a bowl of Beijing zhajiang noodles, there was plenty of sauce. Fresh cucumber strips and shredded green onions were added into the noodles, and half a spoonful of oil was sprinkled on top. The piercing aroma of the noodles filled the air, and together with the shop's special grapefruit herbal tea, it was extremely delicious. Authentic taste, childhood memories. Every bite made people want to give a thumbs up. According to their chef, the boss had instructed them to make the noodles well. Other than white rice, his girl's favorite food was fried sauce made with eggs, accompanied by a large bowl of noodles. When she was young, she could eat several large bowls at a time. Only then did people know that the owner of the restaurant opened the restaurant because of the girl he was talking about. There was only one word in the name of the restaurant, temple. Mahogany tiles were used as tiles. After Baijuan brought Aju in, a waiter in a cheongsam immediately came up to them with a smile. "Sir, how many people are there?" "The two of you." "Yes, sir, this way please." The waiter arranged for them to sit by the window. From where Aju sat, she could see the flowers blooming outside and the green stone wall. The ancient charm was very pleasing. Aju inexplicably felt that this restaurant was very comfortable. The waiter looked at her and smiled. "Miss, I don't know if you have a Gio in your name. If you do, tell me in advance. Our restaurant will provide a free order service." "Free?" Aju's beautiful tiger eyes became round. "So good?" the waiter introduced. "This is the rule since we opened the restaurant. It has never changed." "Then I have a Gio in my name." Aju's face was serious. "Biligio, but I eat a lot. Do you want it for free too? Will you lose money?" Originally, the waiter needed the customer to show their ID card for her to confirm their name. Now the waiter did not even ask for the ID card. His thin lips curled up. "No, miss, you can eat without worry. Our restaurant likes girls who can eat." After Aju heard this, she turned her head and said to Baijuan, "Little brother, this restaurant is so cute. It likes girls who can eat, and it's free." Baijuan did not look surprised. Instead, he pulled her hand over and let her look at the menu together. He asked in a low voice, "Do you want to eat noodles with soy sauce?" "Yes." Aju was obedient. She liked to eat everything. Baijuan rubbed her forehead and elegantly returned the menu to the waiter. "Please have 2 big bowls of noodles with soy sauce. One of the bowls has to have more sauce. The eggs have to be 90% cooked." This was the first time the waiter had encountered a request for the eggs in the noodles with soy sauce. He paused for a moment before saying with a smile, "Yes, sir." Aju was still touching her stomach. She looked at the stir-fried dishes on the next table, and then looked at the little brother, who was very close to her. In the end, she still looked at Baijuan's face. It seemed that the little brother looked more delicious. Adieu. Baijuan seemed to sigh, and put down the teacup at his fingertips. Then he turned around and held her chin. When no one was paying attention, he gently bit her lips. His voice was very low and a little hoarse. How many times have I told you not to look at me like that when we are outside? Aju's face was also red from being bitten. Her eyes were quiet, but her hands were not idle. She took Baijuan's hand and wrote the word hungry on his palm. She wrote it a total of 3 times. Baijuan only felt something gently sweep across his heart. It was like a feather, unbelievably soft. Outside the window, there was a faint osmanthus fragrance. The early autumn wind was very comfortable. If only time could stop like this. That was the deepest thought in Baijuan's heart at that moment. However, he knew better than anyone that it was not the time yet. In another 3 years, he would be discharged from the army. Sir, miss your noodles. The waiter smiled faintly and brought 2 large bowls up. The zhajiang noodles were arranged very nicely. Other than the sauce, there were also red and green side dishes. 2 large cups of herbal tea accompanied them. At the bottom of the bowl was a tiger-headed fish swimming. Beside it was a lotus root and lotus leaves. The shape of the lotus leaves was modified to make an umbrella for the herbal tea, so that it could retain the fragrance when it entered the mouth. Just such a beautiful plate presentation was enough to make one's appetite move. Baijuan took the wooden chopsticks and first put balsamic vinegar in the zhajiang noodles. Then, he scooped a spoonful of chili oil and poured it over. He mixed the noodles back and forth before handing it to Aju. Aju's face was small, and the bowl was especially big. When she buried her head in eating, her entire small face seemed to be buried in it. The 2 strands of hair on her head were still standing up. It was not like what Baijuan had said, that she was like a cat. The more Aju ate, the brighter her tiger eyes became. It was like the taste of the noodles made by the little brother when she was taking the exam in the past. Chapter 1295. Baijuan tilted his head and glanced at her. When he saw her white and tender teeth biting the noodles, he suddenly remembered that when Aju had just arrived at the Bai family, she was too young and still had a small head. When she ate a piece of vegetable, she had to bite it hard. She could always make the hearts of the group of people in the courtyard melt. Now she was still like this. Baijuan laughed. He also picked up his wooden chopsticks and stuffed a big mouthful of noodles into his mouth. When he was with Aju, he would really eat more than usual. It was not a matter of a day or 2 for a child to eat. However, others did not think so. Especially the 2 women who had just been brought in by the waiter. They were wearing white coats outside and military uniforms inside. Captain Bai? The first woman to speak was very elegant. She seemed to have come out from a big family. Her skin was well maintained. When she looked at Baijuan, her eyes were filled with unconcealable joy. This woman was none other than the female military doctor, who had confessed to Baijuan back then, He Chuqiao. She did not expect to see Baijuan here. Her face was slightly flushed. However, when her eyes swept over and landed on Aju, a trace of sadness quickly flashed across her eyes. Yi Xiaoxiao, who was following beside He Chuqiao, knew what her good friend was thinking. She nudged her with her arm and said in a low voice, "That girl is younger than Captain Bai. It's very likely that she's a friend's sister or something. What are you thinking about here? If we don't confirm our relationship, we still have a chance." When He Chuqiao heard her good friend's words, her face turned even redder. However, she really took a big step forward. "Captain Bai, what a coincidence. How's the injury on your back?" "Little brother, you have an injury on your back." Aju was still eating her noodles. When she heard this question, she immediately raised her face. That stunning face of hers was better than He Chuqiao and the others in minutes. Yi Xiaoxiao's heart also sank. Baijuan did not have any intention of paying attention to He Chuqiao. Instead, he used his fingertips to wipe the corner of Aju's lips. His smile was warm. "It was a long time ago. I want to have a checkup. I'll have a checkup when I get back." Aju was very serious in this aspect. However, Baijuan laughed. He had other business. "Okay, I'll let you check my whole body." Aju was such a cute child. No matter how smart she was, She was only thinking about the injuries on Baishuan's body. How could she have thought that this sentence was a trap? She immediately nodded and agreed. However, it was this kind of interaction that made He Chuqiao's heart ache more and more. No one knew that when she was his attending physician and wanted to help him, he would not let her touch his hospital gown. On the contrary, the soldiers under his command were not rejected by him. But now, he actually treated a girl like this. There wasn't the slightest trace of coldness and unapproachable indifference from that time. Why did this happen? And he didn't seem to want to talk to her at all. He Chuqiao's face was about to bleed from embarrassment. Yi Xiaoxiao, who was following behind her, had never been treated like this either. Everyone in the restaurant was looking at them. She and Chuqiao were the flowers of the army. Wherever they went, they were envied by others. This Captain Bai was a soldier after all. No matter how noble his appearance was, it could not hide the impolite ruffian aura on his body. Just by seeing that he only ordered 2 big bowls of zhajiang noodles here, it could be seen. She reached out and pulled He Chuqiao. She said with a fake smile, "Chuqiao, let's not disturb Captain Bai and his little girlfriend from eating zhajiang noodles. You, with such good conditions, what kind of man can't you find? The more polite you are to some people, the more excited they will be. I've heard before that some ordinary office workers who know about this place always come to take a look. Although the other dishes are not expensive, for outsiders like them, it's always painful to order them. Therefore this zhajiang noodles have become their first choice. I didn't know before, but now that I've seen Captain Bai's girlfriend, I finally understand this principle. Zhajiang noodles can fill your stomach, don't you think so?" She didn't finish her sentence. There was a loud bang. The small bowl in Baishuan's hand brushed past her ear and shattered heavily on the ground. Yi Xiaoxiao was so scared that her face turned pale at first, then she shouted, "Where do you think this is? The army? Even in the army, when is it your turn to be arrogant as the captain? We gave you face before, because He Chuqiao had a good impression of you. Now you're taking advantage of us, aren't you?" In fact, whether it was Yi Xiaoxiao or He Chuqiao, they had only seen the injured Baishuan back then. As medical staff, they would bandage the injured soldiers' wounds every day. However, they did not know Baishuan's name, nor did they know why he was injured and what his identity was. This was a secret even to their minister, let alone them. Back then, He Chuqiao had asked a question or two, because she wanted to chase after Baishuan. However, those soldiers all laughed and said, it was an accident during training. Therefore, Yi Xiaoxiao believed that Baishuan had no background. After all, when he was injured, no one with a high military rank came over. How could Yi Xiaoxiao know that no one went because they had received Baishuan's order? He did not want his grandfather to see him in such a sorry state. It was inevitable that the old man would be sad. He also did not want a Jew to know that his girl should not see this blood. At that time, he thought that he would come back to life. He had to come back to life. Otherwise, he would not be at ease no matter who he handed over to his Jew. The news had been sealed at the highest level. So how could anyone go to check on the injury? However, Yi Xiaoxiao took it for granted that Baishuan had no background. So she dared to challenge him like this. Soon, the noise here attracted a large number of waiters. Yi Xiaoxiao pointed at Baishuan and said to the waiters, "This person is causing trouble in the restaurant." He was also the one who broke the bowl. He didn't even inquire about what kind of place the temple was before coming to show off. When the waiters heard this, they stretched out their hands and said, "Sir, please leave this restaurant immediately or else." The chef, who had never come out before, actually hurriedly walked to Baishuan's side and directly interrupted them. "All of you shut up." The waiters paused. A smile appeared on the chef's face. "Young master, long time no see. When I heard the servants say that the eggs should be 90% cooked, I wondered if you were back. As expected, it's really you. Young master." In an instant, not only did the smug expression on Yi Xiaoxiao's face freeze, but even the waiters beside her were extremely shocked. Chapter 1296. Baishuan stood up with one hand in his pocket. He didn't even look at Yi Xiaoxiao and the others. He only said to the chef, Old Chun, we haven't seen each other for more than 2 years, right? Ever since you handed this shop over to me. I've only seen you once in the year before last. After that, I've never seen you again. Old Chun treated Bai Juan very respectfully. Young master, don't worry. Everything in this shop is done according to your instructions. There are no changes at all. Old Chun still remembered that 3 years ago, a youth in a school uniform found him in the Bai family's logistics army and said that he was going to be a soldier. He asked if he was willing to make a bowl of zhajiangmian with him. Unlike ordinary zhajiangmian, the zhajiangmian that the youth wanted to make was not made with meat. Instead, it was made with scrambled eggs and then boiled with sauce. Old Chun was an old chef. This was the first time he had seen someone make zhajiangmian like this. He instinctively blocked his hand and said, "Young master, this zhajiangmian is not made like this. This sauce must be made with meat to taste good." At that time, the youth only smiled and said to him, "My girl is a disciple who has returned to the secular world. She doesn't eat meat." Only then did Old Chun know that there were some people who were willing to wash away their lead and make a bowl of zhajiangmian with eggs for the sake of the existence in their hearts. If it was a young master from another courtyard, Old Chun might not even care about him. However, because of this young master's sincere efforts, Old Chun also picked up the pot and studied with Bai Juan how to make an ordinary bowl of zhajiangmian unexpected. Finally, they succeeded. Everyone who ate it was full of praise. At this time, the youth proposed to open a private restaurant, and he would be the owner and chef. Old Chun was a boorish person, so he didn't know these things. In addition, he was already old, so he didn't immediately nod. Bai Juan smiled and said, "Old Chun, don't worry. Someone will do the other things." Old Chun finally agreed, but he thought again. Isn't young master going to be a soldier? Why is he still opening a restaurant? Old Chun still remembered that the sky had just turned dark, and there was still a streak of red in the western sky. The young man stood there with his back straight and said in a low voice, "It's because I'm leaving that I don't want her to go hungry. With this restaurant here, if she doesn't have money one day, she won't have to eat pancakes on the street. She looks dull, but she has a big appetite. She gets hungry easily. If there's not enough food, it won't be enough for her. So much effort." He just didn't want to starve his girl. Elder Chun had lived for most of his life, but this was the first time he had seen someone like this. Feeling moved, he immediately got to work. This was also the reason why as long as a girl with a Geo in her name entered the restaurant, everything would be free of charge. At this time, when Old Chun looked at the young man again, he couldn't help but feel that time was peaceful. The young master was no longer the young master of the past. From his movements, one could see the strength of someone who had been to the border. However, the look in his eyes did not change. It was deep and full of righteousness. "Chef Chun, who is this?" the waiter at the side asked carefully. After all, Chef Chun's identity was not ordinary. Someone who could make him call him young master. Old Chun glanced at him and said, "This is the real boss of our restaurant, Bai Juan, young master Bai." Bai Juan? As soon as these two words were said, someone in the private room stuck out his head and looked out. The mystery about this vegetarian restaurant was finally solved. It turned out that the boss behind it was none other than the well-known young master Bai. Everyone who came out of the courtyard admired and worshipped Bai Juan. Even those young masters who ate, drank, and played all day long had to bow down when they saw him. How could they not bow down? A person's credit was earned by themselves. They did not use the slightest bit of family connections. It was completely different from those who took the family's money and earned it. Is it really that young master Bai? It looks like it. I heard from my father that his military rank is already a major. My father talks about other people's children in front of me all day long. Thinking about it carefully, this Bai Juan is even younger than me. Chief Zhao specifically named him as the successor. This is really incomparable. No wonder no one dares to cause trouble here. The main reason is that it's comfortable to stay here. Young Master Bai is not like us, who casually makes things difficult for anyone. You heard what that woman said just now. She was clearly making fun of the people that young Master Bai brought. This definitely can't be tolerated. She's not bad looking, but her words carry the smell of money. Pfft. This time, She was probably dumbfounded. Yi Xiaoxiao was not just dumbfounded. Her entire face was pale. Baijuan? Only then did she know what his real name was. Naturally, she also knew his family background. It was the young master that they did not even dare to compare to. At first, Yi Xiaoxiao thought that her status was higher than his, but now she realized what the gap was. Captain Bai, why didn't you say earlier that you were? Yi Xiaoxiao still wanted to say something. Baijuan glanced over from the corner of his eyes and interrupted her coldly. Old Chun, invite these two people out. In the future, our restaurant is forbidden from letting such people in. Yes. Old Chun gestured to the waiters at the side. Yi Xiaoxiao and the other two felt as if they had been slapped in the face. Of course, they could not stay in this place anymore, but they had lost all their face. In the future, they might be laughed at in the circle. A Jew rolled her round tiger eyes and looked at this scene. Suddenly she said, Little brother, are you also very popular in the army? Baijuan smiled and said, I'm not sure either. Liar. A Jew's mouth twitched. Such a big peach blossom. Baijuan was still pretending. No, why didn't I see it? Little brother, you have to be honest. A Jew educated him seriously. Her big eyes turned around again and she said, But you also saw that those women still like the Bai family more than you. I'm different. I like you as a person. Think about it carefully, am I still the best? When Old Chin heard such a theory, he could not help but laugh out loud. So this young lady had been fooling around for a long time, just to praise her family. A Jew turned her head and saw that the chef was laughing. She immediately felt embarrassed and lowered her head to burrow into Baijuan's arms. Baijuan reached out and hugged her, as if he was hugging his own child. Of course my Jew is the best. It had always been. There was only this one person. That was why she did not care about his background. She was only good to him, because he was him. Chapter 1297. Old Chun was stunned. He had never seen young master smile like this before. Whether it was the youth back then or after he became a man, his eyes had always been as calm as ink, as if he was a person in a painting. But now, seeing him coaxing the person in his arms, the corners of his mouth and the tips of his eyebrows were full of smiles. He was really happy. It was not like a few years ago, when he was silent when he saw him. Young master, I think this is your girl. Old Chun was smart and guessed right. Baijuan raised a Ju's hand and kissed it before saying, She's my wife now. Old Chun could not help but be shocked. His eyes shook a few times before he said, Congratulations. Young master, I'll go to the kitchen to add some dishes. We know. It's the two of you. Celebrate. He really did not think too much. Old Chun also did not ask about Ajiz's age. He always felt that it was not easy for the young master to be with the girl he loved, although that girl did not seem to know anything. But this was really something to be happy about, wasn't it? Baijuan did not refuse. Instead he smiled and said, Go ahead. I guess she's not full yet. Okay. Old Chun was full of energy. The people on the other side were still looking at Baijuan's table, but no one dared to come over. This was because Baijuan's entire aura seemed to be saying that he did not want to be disturbed. A Jew sat beside him. She ate whatever Baijuan gave her. Old Chun thought that a Jew did not know anything. In fact, when Old Chun said that Baijuan was the owner of this shop, a Jew understood everything. Why would he give a girl with a 9 in her name for free? It was all because Baijuan had been thinking about her from the beginning to the end. A Jew raised her eyes and buried her head in Baijuan's arms again. What's wrong? What a gentle voice. Why was there a person who was so gentle to her since she was young? That person was clearly not much older than her. But he had to be her father and mother. When she was young, she had chickenpox. He was not even afraid of infection and kept hugging her. Old Master Bai was not at home, although no one in the military compound dared to provoke the Bai family. However, some distant relatives of the Bai family, who were related to her by blood, would often disturb her because of her appearance. They said that she was not a descendant of the Bai family and did not deserve to stay in the Bai family. Someone even told the little brother that when she grew up, she would definitely covet the Bai family's property and asked the little brother to quickly chase her away. There were also people who said that the little brother was not worthy of this family. He was young and did not think much. How could he just casually adopt a child? At the time, the little big brother was hugging her and sitting in the seat that Grandpa Bai often sat in. He looked down at the group of people, even though there was no one behind him to support him, even though he was still a child. However, like a king, he only said one sentence to those people. All of you get out of here. I am the head of the Bai family, not you. At that time, she knew that her little brother would protect her for the rest of her life. A Jew reached out and grabbed the corner of Bai Juan's clothes. Bai Juan didn't ask her anything else. He rubbed her head and kissed the top of her head. Later, when a Jew was happy, she ate another bowl of jajang noodles. However, after getting into the car, her stomach was a little bulging. She lowered her head and touched it with her hand. She said in a small voice, "I'm full." She didn't expect Bai Juan to hear her. He didn't drive directly. Instead, he reached out his hand and began to gently rub her stomach. He smiled faintly. It was very pleasant to hear. A Jew always felt that the way she got along with the little brother was very familiar. She tilted her head and thought for a moment before pulling up a video. It was a celebrity who took a picture of his little brother after eating. His little brother was very cute. His eyelashes were long as he patted his little stomach. The celebrity's voice was very gentle. "You're full. Come and see your brother." As expected, it was very similar. A Jew poked her face. Bai Juan didn't know what she was thinking. There was still training in the afternoon. The car stopped at the school. There was another round of military training. During the break, the people in the class hurriedly pulled a Jew to the side. "Wuxia Jew, why did you only come to school now? The sisters have been waiting for you anxiously." A Jew touched her head. "I had something to do this morning." Oh, then did you ask the questions that the sisters asked you to ask?" Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. A Jew smiled brightly. "Yes, I did." "Then what kind of person does Instructor Bai like?" Those people asked again. A Jew pointed with her finger. "Me." As soon as these words were said, it immediately attracted a wave of boos. "Please, Wuxia Jew, you already answered this answer last time." It seems that she didn't get the answer. Instructor Bai might not tell her. Poor child. I originally wanted to use her beauty to mislead Instructor Bai. Instructor Bai has known a Jew for a longer time than we have. Perhaps he has long been immune to a Jew's beauty. You're right. The group of people began to gather together and whisper. Only the few people in the dormitory pulled a Jew over and brought her to the side. "Did you really ask Instructor Bai yesterday?" A Jew nodded. "Yes. What did Instructor Bai say?" A Jew replied, "He said he likes me." "What about you? What did he say?" A Jew tilted her head. "I said I like little brother too." And then, this was the main point. According to Instructor Bai's personality, he would definitely pounce on her after confirming that the two of them had thought it through. They wanted to listen to the live broadcast. Verbal live broadcast. And then, "Oh," a Jew said, feeling that she understood. "And then we were together. Now we are boyfriend and girlfriend." Her roommate bumped her shoulder and said very seriously, "Student a Jew, with our unwavering dormitory friendship, you should tell us the truth. Don't beat around the bush with your sisters. Be good and tell us the truth." "Tell us what?" A Jew blinked. Could it be that they already knew about her marriage with little brother? Her roommate said again, "Of course, tell us how you spent last night. I heard that soldiers are especially good at that. Was it because you were too tired yesterday that you didn't come this morning?" We all know. When a Jew heard this, she realized what they were talking about. Her white jade-like face turned red for a moment before she said, "We didn't." "No." Her roommates were stunned. "Didn't you say that you moved out to live with Instructor Bai?" "You didn't even live together?" A Jew nodded. Then, with a small face, she said very seriously, "Actually, I also feel that it's time for me to pounce on little brother. Let's do it tonight. It's the wedding night." Her roommates were speechless. Wait a minute. They had no intention of letting a Jew send herself into the tiger's mouth. Chapter 1298. 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The 9th day of military training. The students were used to running and standing in a military posture. The more energy they expended, the more food they ate. Everyone had a big bowl of rice, eating with all their heart in the cafeteria. No one knew that at this time, in the Civil Affairs District, which was only a street away from a university, a limited edition sports car with smooth lines drove through the gate with a sharp sound. No one knew who was driving. It was completely blood red, carrying a thick arrogance and indescribable nobility. The strangest thing was that the car seemed to have disappeared and reappeared after being driven by him. Ordinary people would think that their eyes were playing tricks on them. If an exorcist were to come at this time, they would be able to sense that it was caused by the soaring demonic aura. With a swoosh, the sports car came to a stop downstairs. The person in the driver's seat was still lying lazily on the steering wheel. His long and narrow eyes seemed to emit light, extremely beautiful. He placed his finger on his chin, lifting his head to look at the rooftop, a sinister look on his face. This is the district where Director Huang lives. Seems like it. The person sitting beside him turned the notebook in his hand, smiling faintly. The information I hacked shows that the address is here. The person raised a brow. Then let's go down and ask him properly. Little sister is clearly underage. How did he handle the procedures for her? Okay. It was a light voice, but it couldn't hide the blackness in his voice. Two equally outstanding men stepped out of the sports car from the driver's seat. They were about the same height, almost the same. One of them was wearing an ivory handmade windbreaker, smiling like a spring breeze, holding a business notebook in his hand, making him look like a prince. The other one was wearing a pure black leather cap on his head, military boots and leather pants on his lower body, and a jacket with tassels on his upper body. If someone else wore such an outfit, it would only make people feel that it was gaudy, but when he wore it, it only showed his charm and nobility. A big shot among big shots, a superstar among superstars. If a girl passed by now, she would definitely recognize the person tossing the car keys upwards. It was none other than the nation's big brother who had just filmed The Path of the Devil and became popular throughout Asia, Bailey Shangxia. Standing beside him was Helian Qingchen. The two brothers walked into the elevator one after the other and pressed the button for the 16th floor. Director Huang should be the only one at home now. Helian Qingchen closed the business notebook and smiled faintly. This is suitable for talking. He just ordered takeout. This is a good reason to open the door. Bailey Shangxia listened from the side with one hand in his pocket, and the other hand reaching out to brush the bangs in front of his eyes. Brother. Helian Qingchen was helpless. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not a child anymore. You can leave this kind of thing to me. Bailey Shangxia's face was a little too handsome, but his voice was hard to resist. Stand still. Helian Qingchen had no choice but to let him tidy her hair. She moved her eyes and asked, then who will play the role of the delivery man? Me. Bailey Shangxia held her hand and walked out of the elevator. They walked to room 1602 and knocked on the door. At this moment, Director Huang was hugging his beloved plush pillow and watching a military drama. His expression was extremely fascinated. That's right. In fact, Director Huang liked plush pillows very much. This was also the reason why Bai Zhuan gave him the nickname of Weasel. It had to be said that Director Huang was still very vigilant. After all, he had to maintain his strict and domineering image in front of his wife and children. At this moment, when he heard someone knocking on the door, he suddenly jumped up as if he had been cheated. He put away his things and asked in a low voice, "Who is it?" "Hello, sir. The takeout you ordered has arrived." Bailey Shangxia was indeed worthy of being the best actor. His voice had changed, so no one could hear any flaws. Director Huang had indeed ordered takeout. He did not dare to go to work in the bureau these 2 days. He had also instructed his subordinates that no matter who asked, they should tell them that he had gone out on a trip. Wasn't there a popular saying now? The world is so big. I want to see it. Director Huang thought that no matter how smart those two young masters were, they should not have thought that he did not go anywhere and was just hiding at home. After all, he had really bought a plane ticket, but he did not board the plane. Now, his car was still in the airport parking lot and had not been driven back. This was all to create an illusion, an illusion. The more Director Huang thought about it, the more he felt that he was smart. It was just that sometimes it was inconvenient to eat, and his wife had time outside. He did not know how to cook, and it was even more dangerous to go out, so he could only order takeout. Director Huang let out a long sigh, and then opened the door with a serious expression. In fact, he was so hungry that his stomach was growling. He could not wait to get his things immediately. But the moment he opened the door, he was dumbfounded. Although it was only a crack, it was enough for Bailey Shangxia's long legs to stretch out and block his action of closing the door. Director Huang, what a coincidence. So you're at home. We thought you had gone to the grassland of Inner Mongolia. After all, the world is so big. We have to go out and take a look, don't you think so? As Bailey Shangxia's voice pressed in, the surrounding temperature became colder and colder. Director Huang's forehead was immediately covered in sweat. Helian Qingchen smiled and said, "Brother, let's go in first before we talk." "Okay, come in." Bailey Shangxia pushed the door open. Director Huang was speechless. Whose house was this? Director Huang has become smarter. Helian Qingchen sat down and praised him first. Director Huang stopped and said proudly, "You're flattering me." Who knew that Helian Qingchen's next sentence was, "You even believe that the most dangerous place is the safest." Director Huang was speechless. Could she finish her sentence in one go? "Did you give Bai Zhuan's marriage certificate?" Compared to Helian Qingchen, Bailey Shangxia was the most dangerous. There was never the word turn in his dictionary. His thin lips were cold. Director Huang wiped his sweat. "I could not give it to him. He had already written the application, and it had been approved by the higher-ups. Moreover, when I clicked on confirmation, it was also approved. Only then would the certificate be formed." "Wait a minute." Helian Qingchen narrowed her eyes. "You mean it was approved by the system?" Director Huang nodded. "Yes." Helian Qingchen lowered her eyes, and then met Bailey Shangxia's gaze. The two brothers thought of the same person at the same time. That was their mother. Their mother actually agreed. The two brothers looked at each other again. Then, Helian Qingchen stood up and said to Director Huang with a faint smile, "Since Director Huang has applied for leave, then stay at home for 7 days. You have to maintain this appearance. After all, you're the one who let them register their marriage." Chapter 1299. Maintain this appearance and not change? Just let him not go out for 7 days. This was too unbearable. However, this was already much better than he had imagined. He had thought that these two young masters would cut him into pieces. After all, when they came, they did look like that. But he didn't know why. But the two of them left after this? After returning to the sports car, Helian Qingchen said, "Since mother has agreed, let's not make a fuss. After all, my little sister also likes Bai Zhuan." Bailey Shangxia sneered. That kid obviously had a premeditated plan. In the future, don't be like your little sister, who can just come over and abduct him. Helian Qingchen. Did anyone dare to abduct him? Speak. Bailey Shangxia lowered his voice again and said, "All of you, why do you want to get married? Do all humans have to get married?" Helian Qingchen put away the business book. "Brother, I don't have a girlfriend yet, so I won't be abducted by anyone." Bailey Shangxia glanced at him, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He looked very happy as if something had happened. "Let's go." "Where to?" Helian Qingchen raised her eyebrows. "Shouldn't you fly directly to Spain to film?" Bailey Shangxia lazily knocked on the steering wheel. "I'm not interested in going to Spain. The girls there are very tanned. I like to eat white." Helian Qingchen face-bombed. The food that her brother spoke of was definitely different from what everyone thought of. "To your school." Bailey Shangxia's voice fell. Helian Qingchen paused. "Why are you going to our school?" "It's the last year of your senior year. Your school leader called home and asked your parents to attend the school meeting," Bailey Shangxia said calmly. Helian Qingchen asked, "So why do you want to go?" Bailey Shangxia pressed the tip of his tongue against his canine teeth and asked in return, "Am I not considered your parent?" Helian Qingchen. This answer. He actually had nothing to say. Bailey Shangxia's eyes darkened. An unbridled devil chi overflowed. Even if he did not obstruct, that brat surnamed Bai would not be able to stay here for long. Thinking of this as a brother, Bailey Shangxia finally calmed down. With a wicked smile on his face, he drove into the bustling city center. The sky darkened bit by bit. Dusk. Night was about to fall. In the apartment closest to a university, the aroma had already spread from the kitchen to the living room. There were 4 dishes and a soup on the dining table. The red and green dishes were especially beautiful. Every dish was Aju's favorite. When the rice was chewed in her mouth, her lips and teeth emitted a faint fragrance. Perhaps many people would think that it was not good for a man to be in the kitchen. But that was because many people had never seen Bai Juan and a certain highness cook. Aju watched these 2 people cook the most. Her father liked to fry steak the most. He would always pull her mother along and hold her hand from behind, asking her to put the steak in the frying pan. As for the rest, her father would not touch it. Her father was an extremely clean freak. Yes, very clean freak. Other than her mother, he would probably think that everyone in the world was dirty. Of course, she was still very likable by her father. After all, her father would not speak ill of her. He would even give her red wine to drink and take her to many mountains to play. It was not like how he treated her big brother. Her father always liked to let her big brother go to the demon world. Her big brother also always said that her father was very shameless. Perhaps there were some things in this world that countered each other, but they merged into a family. A real family. Aju knew that although she said so, she would not tolerate anyone in the family being hurt at all. No, I'm talking about cooking. Bai Juan looked very good when he was cooking. His side profile was very gentle. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, and his eyes were deep. There was no smell of oil on his body. Instead, it was full of the fragrance of food. This made Aju like to nest in his arms after dinner. In fact, it was not Aju who took the initiative to nest. Instead, every time it was this time, Bai Juan would hold her in his arms. The 2 of them would sit on the sofa together. Sometimes they would watch TV. When watching TV, Bai Juan would always not forget to prepare some snacks for Aju. Aju loved to eat melon seeds. Bai Juan would peel them and feed them to her. Or, he would take a book similar to Time Like Water and read it with Aju. In short, this kind of interaction was sweet, but it was too normal. Especially today, when Aju decided to pounce on Bai Juan and consummate the wedding night. It was said that to pounce on someone, one had to drink some wine. Therefore, before Aju went upstairs, she had already bought a bottle and put it in her bag. Although monks were not allowed to drink wine, she was about to break her sexual abstinence. It should not be a problem to break her sexual abstinence tonight. Moreover, her brother and the others had also said that the immortals in heaven all drank wine. After Aju made up her mind, she silently chanted Woolly Buddha. Then, she raised her little face and looked at Bai Juan with her round tiger eyes. Little brother, shall we drink some wine? Drink. Bai Juan raised his eyebrows. There's no wine at home. Aju pressed down on her a hogue and said angrily. I bought it. Anyway, you like it. I also want to drink it today. It's red wine. My mother said that drinking red wine is quite beautiful and nourishing. No wonder little brother is so handsome. In the past, you always secretly drank it yourself. Bai Juan held back his laughter and curled her long hair with his fingers. Red wine needs a bottle opener. Did you buy it? No. Aju was stunned. Bai Juan stood up and walked into the kitchen. When he came out again, he was already holding a bottle opener in his hand. Where's the red wine? Here. Aju raised the wine bottle and handed it to Bai Juan. Her big eyes were very beautiful. She was still wearing the tiger pajamas that Bai Juan had just bought for her today. Her tail was wagging. However, at this time she was no longer a child. Her body was clearly developed, and her fair collarbone was exposed. Looking at Bai Juan like that, it made Bai Juan have the urge to hug her. That kind of fierce and completely possessive hug. She dressed as a man, dominated the game, and her flirting skills were top-notch. When people found out that he was a girl, they were all excited. Fujio. Almighty Qin, do you have a girlfriend? Qin Mo put down his business book. No. Fujio teased in a low voice. Then from now on, you have one. It's me. The corners of Qin Mo's mouth curled up slightly, and he pulled open her school uniform. Fujia was stunned. Wait, what are you going to do? Qin Mo leaned over domineeringly. Exercising my right as a boyfriend to sleep with you. Chapter 1300. Bai Zhuan's gaze paused for a moment. He forced himself to suppress all his thoughts. Then he took the red wine over, but he could not stop that thought. Aju was very excited. She was thinking about how to pounce on the little brother later, so that it would seem natural. But before she could think of an answer, Bai Zhuan said, Aju, didn't you want to check the injuries on my body? Yes. Speaking of this serious matter, Aju immediately threw the thought of pouncing on him aside. She did not even drink the wine. With a fierce face she said, I want to check. Bai Zhuan smiled. Okay. As he said that, he put down the red wine and lifted his shirt with his slender white fingers. The man's honey-colored and strong abs were displayed in front of Aju, just like that. Every inch of his body was beautiful and sexy. That kind of Shurgingdu only wanted people to be hugged in his arms and love him fiercely. Aju did not know why, but when she saw such a little brother, her face actually felt a little hot, and her heartbeat also became irregular. However, Bai Zhuan pulled her hand over and let her palm press against his abdominal muscles. When he turned to the side, his breath hit behind her ear. Check carefully and see where are my injuries? Bai Zhuan asked. When her fingertips touched the burning skin, Aju's body unconsciously trembled. Her body was getting hotter and hotter, and her tailbone had an indescribable numbness. Even her breathing seemed to have become out of her control. Little brother. Just as she opened her mouth, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply, blocking all the words she wanted to say. The tip of her tongue emitted a familiar mint fragrance. It was clean, charming, and impossible to escape. Aju felt as if her brain had been sucked out, and she was limp from head to toe. Her hands were still buried in the little brother's clothes, and the temperature of her fingertips could not dissipate no matter how hard she tried. Bai Zhuan leaned over and pressed her entire body into the sofa. His thin lips kissed the back of her ear again and again, and his fingertips pushed away her tiger pajamas. Aju grabbed onto the only trace of thought. She was clearly the one who wanted to pounce on the little brother. So how did it become the little brother pouncing on her? So this is the reason why you want to drink. Bai Zhuan laughed and said in a low and deep voice, Aju, you're not obedient. Aju's tiger eyes shook. Only then did she realize that she had said everything that she wanted to say. But so what? It was the same whether she pounced on the little brother, or the little brother pounced on her. Today was their wedding night. She was going to break her sexual abstinence. However, the man in front of her paused and looked at the phone on the coffee table. A thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead as he gently placed a kiss on her forehead. Good girl, I still have things to do. You go to sleep first. Aju paused when she heard this. But this kind of thing had to be done with mutual affection. Moreover, the call came at a bad time. In fact, Aju also knew that the little brother did not want her. Because that phone call was not an important one. Aju entered the room first. She lay on the bed and waited until she was about to fall asleep. Only then did he realize that someone had entered. It seemed that the person had just taken a bath, and his entire body was emitting a faint bath fragrance. Aju naturally reached out her hand and hugged Bai Zhuan's waist. Her small face rubbed against him. Bai Zhuan lowered his eyes to look at the person in his arms. His deep eyes darkened. The next day, the roommates called Aju to the side on time. How is it? Is it because after drinking, you are so affectionate and hot-blooded? Go. Don't ask this first. Ask instructor Bai if his figure is good. Aju thought for a moment and nodded. Very good. She even touched it before. It was indeed very good. She did not know why, but it seemed that even now, the warmth still remained in her palm. Her body had become so strange. When the roommates heard Aju's words, their eyes lit up. What about endurance? Is it also very good? No. Aju pursed her lips and gave them two words listlessly. When the roommates heard this, their expressions changed. Their lips trembled slightly. You mean instructor Bai, he can't do that? What can't he do? Aju held her small face with both hands. No, it's the two of us who didn't sleep. The roommates exclaimed and patted their chests as if they were relieved. That's fine. You scared me to death. I thought the Prince Charming in my heart was a fake. But it's very strange. Aren't you married? You didn't even use wine? The roommates looked at each other and frowned fiercely. Instructor Bai was not moved by a beauty like a Jew? It didn't look like it. A Jew waved her hand, as if she didn't care about the failure. It doesn't matter. I can try again today. The method is right. The roommates were very supportive of a Jew. It's just that you have to hurry up. The military training officially ends in 3 days. At that time, Instructor Bai will return to the army, right? When they said this, they were also stunned. In other words, a Jew, you will be in a long-distance relationship with Instructor Bai in the future? We are not in a relationship. We are married. A Jew still valued her status very much. I even bought a ring for little brother. The roommates looked at her with a rather heroic expression. No matter what, a Jew, you really should take advantage of Instructor Bai before he returns to the army. Otherwise, it will be dangerous in the future. Dangerous. A trace of doubt flashed across a Jew's round tiger eyes. The roommates actually did not want to teach her bad things, but a Jew was younger than them. They just wanted to remind her of some principles. In the past, there were also university students who fell in love with instructors. They were all sweet when they were in school. After they separated, their feelings faded. This is also the reason why the school does not allow students to fall in love with instructors. The army also does not allow instructors to fall in love with students. A Jew said seriously. That's why little brother brought me to get the marriage certificate. He is responsible for his identity and me. Bai Juan had just walked here when he heard this sentence. His girl was defending him. Before the smile on his face could be raised, the phone in the pocket of his military uniform rang. The ringtone was different from the usual ringtone. It was the ringtone that would only ring every time they were about to carry out a special mission. Bai Juan's footsteps that were about to take a step forward suddenly stopped. He instinctively turned his head and looked behind him. Not only him, but the entire problem army's cell phones also rang. At this time, everyone stopped what they were doing. The playful sound of you pushing me around no longer existed. His usual carefree attitude was no longer present. Even if they did not pick up the phone, they knew very well in their hearts. They were going to leave. They were going to leave this university campus that was full of warmth and sweetness. Hello. Bai Juan still did not hesitate to answer the call. Our current location is the southeast corner of University A. Chapter 1301. Okay. A voice came from the other end of the phone. Captain, we will arrive at the capital airport in half an hour. The police will cooperate with you to clear the direct route from the school to the airport. The east-west traffic lights will be suspended. Now all the mechanisms have entered a state. Captain, there is a road on your left that can lead to the main road. There is a military vehicle parked there. When Bai Juan was on the phone, his eyes were always on the adorable child who was walking towards him not far away. He thought that he had to firmly remember her current appearance in such a small amount of time. His girl had already become his little wife. His wife. As long as he thought of these 4 words, Bai Juan's heart would soften. Then, it was because of this gentleness that he became unyielding in battle. He remembered it all the time. What he wanted to protect. Captain? The person on the other side was wearing headphones. He turned his head and thought that the signal was not good. Their captain did not receive the message. Bai Juan retracted his gaze. His deep and dark eyes suddenly became as reserved as ink. Got it. I'll go over right away. His entire body seemed to have melted into the wind. Just like how he had done countless missions in the past. There was a seemingly harmless poisonous snake hidden in the sand. But in fact, it would bite people to death once it was out. Even if it was saving people, they had to wear a black mask. This was how they were. They would never be remembered by others. But from the beginning to the end they were willing. A Jew wanted to go over, but she saw Bai Juan open his mouth. Although she could not hear any sound. But a Jew also knew what he was saying. He said, "Wait for me to come back." At that moment, she seemed to have sensed something and stood there in a daze. Her roommates walked over and asked her, "What's wrong?" "Little brother is leaving." Aju lowered her head and said in a low voice. Her roommates were still laughing. "How can it be so fast? There are still 3 days of military training. The instructors won't just..." Before they could finish their words, they saw a few instructors take off their camouflage jackets and head towards a certain place at the same time. At this time, the school leader also came over and stopped the students. "Students, listen to me. The new instructor has arrived at the front door of the school." The students were puzzled. "Why do we need a new instructor? Where are Instructor Bai and the others?" "Instructor Bai and the others have something to do in the army. All right, let's gather now." In fact, the school leaders didn't know what was going on. They just wanted to cooperate with the higher-ups. A large number of new instructors had arrived, and they wanted to do just that. Of course, no one would dare to step forward now that the school leaders were there. Moreover, the instructor and the others seemed to be walking very quickly. In the blink of an eye, they were already out of sight. Her roommates did not expect that things would develop to this point. They turned to look at the smallest one in their dormitory and did not know how to comfort her. It was all their fault for being such a jinx. "Aju." The boss pulled her over and was about to say something. Aju said, "When I see Grandpa Bai on the 1st of October, I'll ask which army little brother is in. When the time comes, I'll go look for him." It was now the 1st of October, which was only slightly more than half a month. "That's fine." His roommates breathed a sigh of relief, but he still found it strange. Under normal circumstances, the instructor would not leave until he had finished teaching the students. This time it was too strange. Not only did Instructor Bai leave, but even his subordinates also left with him? Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, Bai Zhuan and the others had already gotten into the car. As soon as they got into the car, they began to change their equipment. Their speed was so fast that it made people click their tongues. "Tell me the mission objective again." Bai Zhuan's voice was very calm. He gave the order and looked sideways, checking his gun. The driver said as he drove, "Someone entered our camp when our army was practicing, right at the border of our army. The people from the West used to be international special forces and were hired by a drug lord. Now they are working as gangsters and want to transport powder through the border. They have few people, are good at hiding, and know very well how to fight in the jungle, especially in the tropical rainforest. We only managed to pry open this line because we caught a person. However, the other party is too cunning and deliberately chose a minefield. If we go further, there will be residents, so we can't send a large force, and we can't deal with them with our small force. These people have smart minds and international military training experience. They are very clear about our routine. It can be said that the combat mode we use here may be outdated in their eyes, so they want to invite the sharp blades to take action." As he spoke, the driver swung the tail of the car and drove into the main road. On this day, many people who took the airport route encountered a red light and waited for instructions. It was as if they were deliberately passing for someone. This was not uncommon in the imperial capital, but that would happen on Chang'an Street. And the strange thing was that this time, it was not a few cars that passed by. Instead, there was only a black military Hummer. They could not see what was going on inside. The car did not have a license plate, so it was very mysterious. But even so, it was still allowed to pass through, and even drive into the airport. They did not pass the security check. These people all walked through special passages, and were personally led by the higher-ups. A military plane was still hovering in the sky, stirring up a gust of wind. Then a rope was thrown down. "Captain." Someone stood at the entrance of the cabin and shouted down. Bai Zhuan gestured, and the problem soldiers immediately grabbed the rope and climbed up one by one. Each of them was very fast and very professional. They did not look like the lazy and arrogant people they were in school at all. Bai Zhuan was the last to go up. The plane did not even land before it flew away. The team of about 10 people began to increase their equipment for the second time on the plane. Bai Zhuan turned around and pointed at a small notebook. "This is the target we are going to deal with today. Remember their appearance and characteristics, as well as their gun techniques." Yes. After the research, there was still half an hour of rest. Everyone sat in the cabin in silence. Li Hailu looked at Bai Juan's side profile and lowered his voice. Did you say goodbye to a Jew properly? No, Bai Juan did not want to say these two words. He paused for a moment. I asked her to wait for me to go back. It's not easy to be a military wife. Li Hailu nudged him with his shoulder. Fortunately, you met a Jew. She was like this when you were young. If you asked her to wait, she would wait. She trusted you more than anyone else. Yes. Bai Juan lowered his eyes and smiled. So how lucky was it to have such a wife? Chapter 1302. There are still 20 minutes to reach our goal. The pilot adjusted the sound wave. Captain, I can't fly the plane over. I'll be discovered. Bai Juan restrained his gentleness. His handsome side profile flickered under the light. Let's jump down. Okay. The pilot flew sideways. All the soldiers were carrying parachute bags and guns. Military green equipment would be more convenient for hiding. Are you ready? Bai Juan stood at the hatch and looked back. His black hair was messy, his eyes were deep, and his voice was buzzing in the wind. I'm ready. The answer was very loud. Bai Juan put on his mask, and his eyes were as cold as a wolf's. Those who offend China, even if they are far away, they will be killed. The last sentence was said in a very deep voice. That voice seemed to come from their chests. It was like the scorching sun in the desert. In their eyes, there seemed to be something that would never be extinguished. Even if they were fully armed and only revealed a pair of eyes, people could not help but feel that it was starlight that filled the sky. At the same time, it was in an apartment outside the school. A Jew pushed open the door. On this day, there was no smell of food in the kitchen, and the bedroom was also cold. She was stunned at first. Then she raised her head and looked at Alaska in the room. The big dog was also a little listless. It lay there and did not even raise its paws. A Jew immediately ran over and gave it dog food. Her eyes were very beautiful. Little brother left too suddenly, right? Woof! Alaska barked at her as if it had remembered something. It bit the hem of her pants and told her to go to the bedroom. A Jew's round tiger eyes turned. What's there? Woof! Alaska ran over by itself and touched the box beside the bed with its big head. A Jew was happy. Did little brother leave it for me? Woof! As a military dog, it was making a mountain out of a molehill for it to do this kind of thing. However, since it was its master's order, of course, it had to do its best. Thinking of this, Alaska raised its dog head. The way it raised its head and puffed out its chest made a Jew want to rub it. Alaska was so scared that it shrank back and barked again. Woof woof woof. You want me to watch it quickly? A Jew raised her eyebrows. I'm talking about how strong you are. Alaska proudly walked around in a circle. A Jew decided to play with little Alla later. She lowered her head and opened the box. There was a black card, a real estate book, and a piece of paper lying quietly inside. There was a line of words written on the paper in beautiful handwriting. If I had known that I had you for the rest of my life, I would have wanted to start the rest of my life earlier. Maya Jew, are you happy to marry me? A Jew looked at the piece of paper with bright eyes. She turned around and hugged the dog's head. With a delicate little face, she said seriously, What should we do? I really miss it now. I miss her so much. I miss her so much. I'll pounce on you. Alaska. The way you express your gratitude is really unusual. Pounce. Shouldn't girls be crying at this time? Sure enough, he shouldn't have thought of her in a normal way. This Hercules. A Jew looked at the piece of paper again, and suddenly raised her head. I've decided. I'll join the army too. The expression on Alaska's face changed. Wait a minute, don't mess around. When Master finds out, he will think that I didn't look after you well. Why do you think Master left me behind? It's decided then. A Jew reached out and patted Alaska's head. The Alaska, dazed by her strength, began to turn in circles. A Jew did not hesitate at all. She felt that she could not tell her father about joining the army, because every time her father saw humans, it was as if he was looking at ants. Probably all the demon kings were like this. At least it was much better than her big brother, who wanted to eat humans whenever he saw them. Moreover, Her father seemed to have brought her mother to the demon world. In her father's words, it was best not to disturb him, and her mother if there was nothing. Aju poked her face. Then she would just tell her brother and the others directly. Second brother definitely had a way. Aju took out her phone and called Helian Qingshan. The call was quickly picked up. Her second brother's smile was as pleasant as ever. Little sister, what's wrong? Her big brother seemed to be there as well. He said coldly and evilly. Were you bullied by Baijuan? Just divorce him. No. Aju shook her head. It wasn't easy for me to tie little brother down. I don't want a divorce. Moreover, little brother didn't bully me. He has always been very good to me. Helian Qingshan let out a long sigh. Don't listen to big brother. He's jealous. I know. Aju said in a tiger voice. I will always love big brother. Even if I get married, I will still love big brother more than Buddha. Bailey Shangxia smiled. Yes, very good. Then big brother, can you do me a favor? Aju continued. I want to join the army. Don't you know people in the army? I saw someone go to the villa to look for you last time. Bailey Shangxia frowned. Join the army? No, why not? Aju's tiger eyes widened. I'm very good at fighting. Bailey Shangxia lazily leaned back. Your purpose for joining the army is not good. It must be for that guy Baijuan. Yes, but not entirely. Aju's eyes darkened. I know divination. When I reach the border, I will definitely be able to save more people. I originally wanted to open a temple, but after thinking about it, I am already married to little brother. In the future, I will break the precept of lust, but I can't let Buddha down. Buddha said that true kindness is not to not see blood, but to be able to raise a knife and protect the important people. Even if your hands are covered in blood, you have to do it without hesitation. Little brother joined the army for me. I also want to join the army to protect our family. Bailey Shangxia listened to the words on the other side, and his fingers slowly stopped. Then he turned around and met Helian Qingshan's gaze. Helian Qingshan reached out and took the phone out of his palm. She smiled faintly. Okay, big brother, and I will help you arrange it. Thank you, big brother, second brother. Aju's tiger eyes burned. After hanging up the phone, Bailey Shangxia stood up. Are you really going to let little sister join the army? Big brother. Helian Qingshan sat there and poured a cup of tea. It was like a clear painting that slowly unfolded. The Buddhist scripture said that back then, the phoenix egg landed on Mount Buzhou. Sakya attracted the Buddhist light and waited for her to be born. Phoenix walked out of the blazing flames, so she must be different from the other Buddhas. Mother once held the phoenix bone knife in her hand and stepped on white bones and blood. She made a great vow that she would not become a Buddha until the sea of blood was empty. Little sister has the Buddhist fate of mother. She is different from us. Since she is the descendant of Phoenix, she naturally has the same comprehension. This is our little sister, isn't it? Chapter 1303. Hearing this, Bailey Shangxia pursed his lips. But from the looks of it, he seemed to have been convinced. He retracted his demonic aura and lay back on the sofa, like a lion that had retracted its claws. Helian Qingshan's lips curled up. And little sister still has us, she will be fine. I'll go catch a few ghosts and follow her. Bailey Shangxia moved immediately. Helian Qingshan thought for a moment and said, that's fine too. Then go to the underworld. When Bailey Shangxia mentioned the underworld, layers of evil aura appeared in his long and narrow eyes. At this time, the judge was the only one working overtime in the King of Hell's palace. He felt very sad. When Bailey Shangxia and Helian Qingshan appeared, he was so scared that he trembled. Why are the two young masters here? We're here to see you, Judge. Bailey Shangxia put his arm on the judge's shoulder. At this time, he didn't look like he was in the human world at all. Instead, he had turned into a demon with black hair that reached the ground. Even his eyes had turned into an evil red. That kind of pressure was really not something that anyone could bear, especially the judge who had been troubled by their family. Young Master Shangxia, don't joke around. You're here to see our highness, right? He's not here and has gone to the human world. You know that he's grown up now. The King of Hell can't control him anymore. He's running between the two worlds. I know about this. He even got 2 ox head and horse face for the person he likes. Bailey Shangxia flipped through the book of life and death on the table. The judge wanted to stop him, but he didn't dare to make a sound. He could only bow his head silently. However, was the news of their family's prince's disgraceful actions so widespread? Even the people in the demon world knew about it. It's not just the demon world. He seemed to have seen through the judge's thoughts. Last time, a few demons were discussing in the city center. I heard them. Those demons were courting death. Of all the people they could target, they actually targeted the person he was interested in. The judge paused for a moment. After thinking for a while, he decided to ask, "Young Master Shangxia, don't you think that it's strange for my highness to give someone ox head and horse face? Those are all ghost messengers." "What's so strange about that?" Bailey Shangxia retorted. "What else is the underworld's specialty other than the emissaries of hell?" The judge. He actually had nothing to say to that. But was it really a good idea to give it to a ghost servant that he loved? The most important thing was that the other party was a human. When these young masters gave gifts, did they ever consider the feelings of other people as humans? Helian Qingchen kept laughing at the side. He didn't want to tell the judge that other than looking for the book of life and death, his big brother was also here to catch a few ghosts to play with his little sister. Otherwise, the infernal judge would definitely go crazy. Why aren't there any people with the surname by here? Bailey Shangxia flipped through a few pages and casually threw the book of life and death to the side. The judge quickly caught it. Young Master Shangxia is talking about the Tang family. Your Highness calls him Uncle Tang. Bailey Shangxia was very absent-minded. The judge was shocked when he heard that. Then he slowly said, "I don't know if young Master Shangxia has heard of such a saying. If a person is alive, he is not afraid of gods or demons. He has a clear conscience, and his faith is as strong as a rock. He will not be affected by the book of life and death." Bailey Shangxia listened quietly. A light flashed in his eyes. The person from the Tang family, who dared to shoot at ghosts, is one of the exceptions. After the judge finished speaking, he continued, "The young master of the Bai family is also full of righteousness. Not to mention ghosts. Even Oxhead and Horseface don't dare to approach him." Hearing this, Helian Qingchen raised her eyebrows. In fact, they came down this time to increase Bai Zhuan's lifespan. They didn't expect his life to be so tough. People who were not in the book of life and death were variables other than gods and demons. In fact, Helian Qingchen herself was also a variable. After all, he was not like Bailey Shangxia, nor was he like a Jew. In his body, there was both Helian Vivian's Buddhist aura and Beligage's demonic vein and immortal root. Originally, he should not have existed in the world, but after reversing the reincarnation time and space, he was born. Since that's the case, then it doesn't matter if a Jew joins the army. With Baijuan's righteousness, the cultivation of Buddha's fate depends on righteousness in the end. Helian Qingchen raised her eyes and smiled at Bailey Shangxia. Bailey Shangxia raised his eyebrows. "Then we'll just catch a ghost." "Ghost?" The judge's expression changed drastically. "You can't do that. Young masters, the underworld is different from the ancient times. We also have to clock into work and take inventory of the warehouse. If there are fewer ghosts, how am I going to explain it to His Highness?" Bailey Shangxia slowly curled his lips. "That's your business. Be good and work hard. We'll be leaving first." "Wait a minute. You little bastards. Come back." A Jew did not know that her two brothers had caught a few ghosts for her in the underworld. The next day, she finished writing the application for a leave of absence. Wearing the military uniform of a recruit, she held the Alaskan in her hand and embarked on her military journey. Every year, the recruits would receive a demonic training on the first day. It was fine to be a female soldier, but a Jew did not apply for an art soldier or a military doctor. Instead, she wanted to be a special forces soldier with all aspects. "Do you know how to shoot?" The person who asked her was a female soldier in her 30s. She had neat short black hair, a military cap on her head, and straight military boots. There was even a kind of fierce beauty. Although her voice was very faint, there was no trace of contempt in her eyes. Instead, it was an ordinary inquiry. A Jew nodded heavily. I know how to shoot. When the captain heard this, he casually threw her a gun. Try shooting twice. A Jew took it and aimed her round tiger eyes at the muzzle of the gun. Bang! 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 3 shots were fired in succession. Every shot hit the bullseye. The surrounding recruits all had their mouths wide open. Was she really like them? Reporting to the army on her first day, the female soldier looked at a Jew and smiled. She ordered the people behind her. Tell them that there's no need to choose from the veterans for me. I already have a candidate. As she spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at a Jew. I want to take this little girl away. When the minister behind the female soldier heard this, he suddenly paused. Are you really sure? Of course. The female soldier curled her lips into a faint smile. This is the kind of person we need. After saying that, she looked at a Jew and asked with some interest, Little girl, you don't seem to be surprised that I chose you at all. With a small face, she said in a very serious tone, Before I came to be a soldier, I gave myself a divination. The divination said that I would meet a noble person, so this is normal. The female soldier looked at her cute little appearance, and suddenly had the urge to hug her in her arms and rub her. She did the same and carried a Jew over. What a noble person. Then come back to the Tang sect with me, little cute pet. Tang sect. Where her mother used to be. A Jew's tiger eyes lit up and she immediately said, Okay. Chapter 1304. The minister's face was full of black lines as he watched from behind. He had heard before that the Tang sect never played by the rules when choosing people. As expected, the recruits were all taken away by them. This child was still underage, right? She would definitely regret choosing to go to the Tang sect in the future. After all, that place was not a place for girls to stay. Those who could go all had a man in their hearts. Moreover, all of them were not afraid of death. However, he did not understand. The current Jew was very excited. Her round tiger eyes lit up. She put her hand between her lips and whistled loudly. A majestic Alaskan ran over from the other side and squatted beside her. Unlike the wild snow of the Alaskan, the white cat's steps were very cold. First, it jumped on the back of the Alaskan. Then with a kick it jumped on Ajiz's head. Its tail was wagging there. This beautiful big sister, can I bring Xiao Bai and Allah with me? The head of the army was stunned. When did these cats and dogs come in? Why didn't he know at all? Sure. The female soldier smiled confidently. In the future, these would be the cute pets of the Tang sect. A Jew smiled again. She thought to herself that if she had brought little Allah with her on the day they met, her little brother would definitely be happy to see her. The female soldier drove a desert military vehicle. The military vehicle had obviously been modified. The wheels were very thick, and when it rolled over the ground, it had a different vibration. Now that she had finished choosing people, she supported herself with one hand and jumped in. She did not sit in the driver's seat, but in the passenger's seat. She casually threw the keys to a Jew. A Jew immediately understood, and jumped in with her arms propped up. She held the steering wheel with a very serious expression. The Alaskan and the white cat sat in the back. The scene was very cool. The military woman seemed to be very satisfied with the bunch of cute pets she brought. She put on her sunglasses and ordered, Let's go. At the beginning, it was indeed very cool. But when a Jew started the car, the military woman tilted her head and almost tripped. Damn! Don't drive like that. Throttle. Slow down. Turn left. Child, that's not the left. Thus, a new journey began with a bang. 3 months later, at the southern border of Tibet, in the deepest part of the dense forest, it was said that it was the line of defense that terrified the enemy the most. Over there was a group of soldiers who were different from ordinary people. They belonged to the external force of the army, and were the most special unit. They were not arranged according to their serial numbers, nor did they belong to any branch of the armed forces. The criminals overseas called them the Tang sect. The Wuxia people were most famous for Chinatown in various countries. This was the source of the Tang sect's meaning. In other words, this was the door to Wuxia, and they were the most trustworthy gatekeepers. This was because a belief was deeply implanted in their bones. If one day, I have someone I love. I'll tell her. Sorry, I can only protect you with my left hand. Because my right hand will be free, ready to go into battle at any time. This was the Tang sect. A unique existence. In the lush forest, a pair of military shoes stepped on the fallen leaves. Looking at the young girl who was playing with the wild wolf's tail, he could not help but raise his hand and rub his forehead. Aju, come here quickly. There's a mission. When Aju heard this, she raised her eyes. Her tiger eyes were very beautiful. Another mission? Yes, so let those wolves go. The soldier woman walked over. This time, it's a mission outside. Aju let go of her hand and stood up. She seemed to have grown a little taller. Her bright eyes and white teeth were clear. This is my first time going out. A special forces team will complete the mission with you. The female soldier patted her head. Pack up and go out. Aju nodded and asked, how do I get there? By car? The female soldier was speechless. No. The female soldier decisively denied. Someone will send you there. When they were carrying out the mission, they encountered something strange and need you to calculate. When Aju heard this, she felt a little regretful. Actually, other than divination, I'm also very good at fighting. You don't need to do this kind of thing. The female soldier smiled. They're also very strong. Aju withered for a moment and made another request. Then I want to bring 10 buns to eat on the road. The female soldier was speechless. Could this request be higher? However, she would still try her best to satisfy the request of the cute pet of the Tang sect. Aju wanted 10 buns, and the shadows gave her 20. There were also people who told her how to carry out the mission. Don't talk to people. Be cold and aloof. This is the style of our Tang sect. Don't dance with people either. Put on sunglasses. If anyone dares to take advantage of you, just cut their throat. Last time, I pretended to be a dancer. Don't mention the feeling. Damn it, being touched on the waist almost made me curse in public. Hearing this last sentence, Aju raised her head. But senior brother, you're a man. Why did you pretend to be a dancer? That person froze and his face quickly turned red. It's necessary for the mission. No, this is definitely his hobby. Another beautiful sister walked over. Moreover, Aju, don't you think that his face is most suitable to be a dancer? Aju looked at her senior brother's face and nodded seriously. Indeed. You guys. That person gritted his teeth. Don't teach Aju bad things. Aju blinked and saw that everyone had stuffed a lot of things into her backpack. Basically, they were all food. When you're out on missions, you often don't have anything to eat. Wear them. I also have a small smoke bomb here. Aju, I've seen the place you're going in advance. You still need to go around a forest to reach your destination. There are many snakes in the forest. Be careful. Aju nodded as she listened. She looked very obedient. At this time, someone paused. Animals and whatnot, it should be fine, right? That's true. The others nodded. They firmly believed that Aju was the king of the beasts. Aju carried her heavy backpack and said very neatly, then I'll be leaving. I'll bring you instant noodles when I come back. I want the braised ones. Spicy ones. Seafood ones. Look at how useless you are. I want everything. Didn't you come out with the kimchi flavor recently? Give me a box too. Aju nodded and turned around. A large military bag was carried on her back. It did not look like something that could be carried by someone of her physique at all. She was followed by an Alaskan dog. Just like that, they entered the endless forest bit by bit. At that time, she did not know that the person waiting at the other end of the mission was someone who made her happy. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.